Hello there, everyone. Pleasure to be back. Welcome to another week of League Racing, Blackout Racing League. And if that's anything to go by, the screen for the next 3 hours should look like this. That's my first joke out of the way, and now let's get into the real meat of the horse. This week, as I rightly predicted, we are actually racing at Japan, so that's great news. It means I can sleep soundly tonight. The other track in question, well, it has been a while since we've been here, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chinese Grand Prix, home of many interesting things. The 2008 Olympics, the Shanghai racetrack, of course, and also, well, I think you know exactly what I'm thinking, so I'm not going to say it, but basically what I'm saying is the Chinese Grand Prix today is going to be the 50% race for today, which seems to have gone down very well with our roster of drivers today, but we'll see how it unfolds as we go on through the course of this evening, where I am in the UK, although it may be different depending on where you are watching from. So, let's head over to the notebook, and let's head over to the long driver's standings, and constructor standings for that matter. Thanassi increased his lead to now almost 80 points over his next closest challenger, Timmelele, although last week he didn't have it all his own way, should I say. Him and Timmelele made contact twice, both at the beginning of the race, in Portimao and Singapore. I almost forgot where we raced last week. You can tell I'm not with it. But anyway, collisions between those two, all kinds of controversy caused. But in the end, he won the Portuguese Grand Prix. But Singapore was a much, much more difficult affair. Mixed weather conditions, an arduous race, a very long race, and me having skill issues. You didn't miss much, don't worry. Just a screen for about 20 laps of OBS deciding to crap itself. But no matter, we ploughed on like a combine harvester, and we got to the end of the race where all of the magic happened. And by magic, I mean mentalism. Because, my goodness me, if you were there, you will have seen there was no race quite like the Singapore Grand Prix in the Blackout Racing League. No one knew whether to go on to inters or wets towards the end of the race. At one point, it looked like it was wet enough, and raining hard enough, to be the wet tyres, as the right gamble. But in the end, it was not to be. It was the Ferrari of Stark that ended up winning a race. Again, he just seems to come out on top when the race is a complete chaos from start to finish. He makes those right calls, sticks his neck out, doesn't put a foot wrong, and it all comes flocking back to him. And it did in the end, which means he's now 5th in the standings, and comfortably, the top 5. My goodness me, there's a sizable gulf between the top 5 and the rest of the challengers. But let's look through the standings nice and quickly. I've already said the top 2, but it's Milo in P3 with the other McLaren man of Buck 20 in P4. Stark really found his pedal to the metal last week. I said pedal, I don't really care, but the point is he is 5th and closing down the 2 McLarens ahead. Blackjack is in 6th, and then we have J-Lane in 7th, so Williams are 6th and 7th. Tom in 8th, despite not racing for about 600 weeks, so that's pretty good. Dirk 9th, Buck 57 in 10th, and Magico, consistent as ever, in the Alpine 11th, although he will not be racing this week. Neither will Tom, and a bunch of others. In fact, we do have a big reserve roster for today. Dan Gilligan's in the Red Bull. We have someone who's currently not in the driver's standings, but that will all be revealed very, very soon as to who they are, racing in Alfa Romeo. But you'll soon find out what happens there. In the constructors' standings, McLaren are still in the lead. They are keeping that gap just about stable between themselves and Mercedes. 2 consistent races last week have helped them out a treat. Mercedes, of course, like I said, trying to close them down, but it's Aston Martin that are making the march, now in the 400 points bracket with 405. Ferrari with 344. Venus and Serena need to pull their socks up a long way, as they are falling behind in the chase for the top. And then you have Red Bull, Haas, AlphaTauri, Alpine, and Alfa Romeo, and you've got eyes you can read, so there are the points. Perfect. Well, I assume we'll be racing underway very, very soon. So, let's put it back onto standby, and then we will get right into, like I said, the meat of the horse. That's not a Tesco ad. But the point is, we will be soon underway for our first race of the evening, a 35% race around the land of the rising sun. That's right, it's the Japanese Grand Prix.
close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Right, everyone. We are almost ready. It is almost time to get underway. For 20 cars to go ree. But anyway, before we do that, let's have a look at our driver roster. And I'm going to have a look at the chat, because I hardly ever do that, do I? Dirk's trying to chat me up. Listen, I appreciate it, but I have a girlfriend. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. I apologise. Maybe next time. Matt, hello, Matt. How you doing? I'm good, man. I'm good, man. I hope you're doing very well. Didn't know you converted to a full-time... Honestly, neither did I. But here I am. Every Monday. Doing what I do. Which is commentating over F1. Because I love doing it. And that... I've got nothing else to add to that. Magico, remember to... Oh, you absolute cheeky... man. I'm a professional. I don't swear on this Twitch stream. There's a word I'm thinking of, but I can't say it. So let's move on quickly with gritted teeth, to the driver roster for today. The answer is we're getting ready to short qualifying this. And my screen works. 1-0. Your drivers for today, you would have seen them briefly. However, I can't show you them because the list has now gone. Here they are. It's qualifying time for the Japanese Grand Prix. The venue last year at which Max Verstappen eventually was crowned the Drivers' World Champion for his second World Championship. Whatever the circumstances may be, that is what the history books say. So, yeah, that's fun, isn't it? Anyway, let's get the spectator menu up. Let's get the map up, because I know what I'm doing. And let's see who pulls the trigger first here in the land of the rising Sun. Of course, in Formula 1 today, we do have a Japanese driver, Yuki Tsunoda, who does his trade with his wonderful AlphaTauri team. Of course, this weekend in particular saw, well, some rather interesting circumstances. Or rather unfortunate if your name is Daniel Ricciardo. We all wish him, of course, a very speedy recovery in the Formula 1 community. And I speak for the few people that are here, but I hope he gets back behind the wheel very, very soon. However, his replacement, I thought, went very, very under the radar indeed. His first race weekend, had a day less than his teammate, had his first time in an F1 car in the wet ever, his first time on those compound tyres ever, because it changed between 2022 and 2023, and still finished ahead of his teammate. Liam Lawson had a genuinely unbelievable Formula 1 debut, in my opinion, and no one else can tell me any different. Plus, he overtook Charles Leclerc. Yes, Charles Leclerc had problems, but we don't need to talk about that. Let's look at the Aston Martin of Dirk. A Riz master when he's off the track, and rizzing the competition when he's on the track. At least that's what he's hoping he will be doing as he goes out for his first lap. There are cheers in the chat for the lone Alpine of Vulcan for today. In weeks gone by, Magico has been the one leading the line, leading the charge for the French team. Now it's Vulcan that will be doing that for the Enstone outfit, the French Fury. Here, though, let's see if it can be Aston Martin Annihilation, as through the Casio Triangle, which is not a triangle. I don't know why they've called it that, but here comes Dirk. Round the final corner and onto the pit straight to begin our first lap in qualifying. DRS wide open, fly down towards turn number 1. You pin the throttle for as long as you can. Changing down, yellow flags briefly, but that's at the end of sector 3. No problems. Use as much of the curb as you dare, and then through this S section. The curbs on this game much, much more forgiving than its predecessor. However, you don't want to take too many liberties. You can still spin and look like you're dancing on ice. Through the left-hander, so easy to go full throttle through there. It's not even funny, but I could laugh because it's a million times better than F1 22. I will slander it all day. A purple Sector 1, courtesy of him being the first one to set a Sector 1 time. Through Degner 1 and Degner 2, no histrionics, and through into the hairpin. Bit of camber helps to glue the car to the inside, pin the power down as quickly as possible, and you roar down towards the spoon curve. Does your spoon look like that? If it does, then I have no quarrel with you. It's okay. Nearly going off the track. You have to be so careful, of course. Track limits are very strict, as always, in the Blackout Racing League. But no problems at all for Dirk in the Aston Martin. And the huge run-up to 130R continues. Onto the grass, in fact. He's gone for a spot of WRC as he goes round the left-hander. Brake as hard as you dare. The front brakes cry out for resuscitation. Hotter than the sun. But eventually, those sun-kissed tyres will bring you across the line. And the first time of the day is a 1 minute 29.5. But next across the line is not the AlphaTauri of Maximus. It is Slam who improves that time to a 1 minute 29.3. Big Sam also in the 129s. So all good so far. By the way, the man who is in the second Alfa Romeo is Slash Hanger. I'm really good at this, trust me. Buck 20 into the 1 minute 28, straight away with 1 minute 28.5. But here he is, Slash Hanger. On his first lap of the day in the Alfa Romeo. I haven't commentated over his driving yet, so I'm going to say he's doing a phenomenal job indeed. As over to Milo we go, as he crosses the line for the second McLaren. It's a 1 minute 28.3, gets the one over his teammate at the beginning of this qualifying session, and he'll look to continue that as the event goes on. Slash Hanger, can he slash a good time in? Not the best time he would have hoped for, but it's okay. It's early in qualifying, still a 1 minute 30.4, not too far off the pack. The lone Red Bull of Daniel Gilligan then has invalidated his time. That's not ideal. Into the pits he goes. But there is the Alpine of Vulcan. Many cheers in the chat. Many prime opportunities to have a perler of a lap. It's P6 down to P7 as Maximus crosses the line right behind him. And then demoted down again as Captain Wilco sails on into P3. But a good start there for Vulcan. Let's see who else goes through. Buck 57 up into P3. Great stuff for the Mercedes man, not too far off the leading pack, but we are still yet to see the Red Bull of Daniel Gilligan and Timmelele and Thanassi. All of these competitors, especially Timmelele and Thanassi, meteorically quick. And in the case of Timmelele and Thanassi, the battle of the T's always ends somehow in it T-boning and it going absolutely horribly wrong. Hopefully that is not the case today. They are fierce racers, of course, but remember, as always, the primary aim of the Blackout Racing League is to have fun. And if you're not having fun, you can get out, personally. There's nothing serious to this game, trust me. Start goes up into P5, meanwhile, and is just under a tenth off his teammates. So Ferrari looking very consistent from the offset. Who will win the race tonight? That is a great question. 3 names Magico's put in: Milo, Zeus, or Tim. I am going to put my hat into the ring. And it's going to get thrown straight out again, probably, as I get this horribly wrong. But I am feeling that it is going to be Thanassi. I've said it. I think Thanassi is going to win the first race of the night. But that is, of course, the first race of the night, and we have 2 races. So that's double the fun, ladies and gentlemen. A good start to this qualifying session then. Milo, both the McLarens actually looking like they're right on the pace. That's exactly what they need in their Constructors' Crusade. Speaking of which, here's the man that I think is going to win the first race of the night. That is not to say, of course, that this man, who is currently still waiting in his pit box having a turkey sandwich, won't be incredibly close. I imagine Timmelele will have an answer, potentially, to Thanassi's charge. It'll be a closely fought duel. It probably will end in tears, but hopefully it won't. We will see great battles between these two for the entire evening. A dry qualifying session, but of course we've seen the weather play a factor in these last few weeks of Blackout Racing. What will the gods of Formula 1 bring us today? Here's someone who's named after a god. Whether he has that ego is up to him, but he certainly drives like one. He's got the pace for it. Here we are, riding on board then with your championship leader. Thanassi crosses the line, DRS wide open, the slipstream and the fresh air being given a good old suck as he sweeps round the first set of corners, full throttle, brake as late as you dare. That is commitment if I've ever seen it. Using a bit of the exit curb, and then you can just about kiss these curbs on the left, on the right, on the left again, zigzagging in, out, not shaking it all about because you'll end up in barrier and look sad. Through the left-hander, touch the curb a little bit there, still throttle pedal to the metal. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Through deck the one, pure commitment there, goodness me, hardly even lifted out. Traction ripping up straight away, the car complying brilliantly as it's the best sector one of the entire session. Into the hairpin, so much speed there, you'd think he'd be sweeping off into the next race in China, but just keeps it on the track. The aerodynamics sucking the car down into the tarmac. The bitumen is very tasty for these Pirelli tyres as they bite hard into the spoon curve, just missing the apex, but the momentum will carry him through, and the second part is all kept together with a chock full of a little bit of correction on the edge. Full throttle then down towards 130R. Will he lift? Let's find out then. No. He does not. And into the Casio triangle. Brake at the 100-meter board. Late as you dare. The car complies. A little bit of a slide through the right-hander, but kept all together. Lots of wheel spin through the final corner. Across the line. It's, oh my goodness me. Right then. Well, he's laid down the gauntlet at 127.0. The man who I predicted to win this race. I'm going to curse him now, aren't I? Whether the commentator's curse will take effect is another discussion for a later time in this event. But Thanassi 1.3 seconds ahead of the nearest competition. And that is alarming news for the chasing pack, who will be chasing all the way through. Let's see what everyone else has as an answer. The answer is Slashhanger does not have an answer, and neither does Vulcan. They pull into the bits. Meanwhile, across the line goes, I believe it was Dirk or it was Timmelele, I'm not sure. Timmelele is actually near the spoon curve, so it was Dirk, in fact, starting yet another lap in this session. Either that or he's finished one. The answer is he's finished one, and he's now up into P9 in this session for Aston Martin. Daniel Gilligan, meanwhile, goes up into P3 with his first lap of the session. Said before the race, bit of insider information, that he wasn't particularly a fan of driving Japan. I'm a poet and I didn't know it, and neither of the Chinese Grand Prix. However, so far, it looks like He's got it all very much under control. Who's the first McLaren across the line then? The answer is, it is Buck 20, going up into the 1 minute 27, so 1 minute 27.5. In the background, though, is Timmelele, who begins his fast lap. Ferrari across the line, I believe, also beginning a fast lap. It is Stark bringing the iron, hopefully, with a 1 minute 28.8. He has now just got ahead of his teammate. Timmelele then through the first sector, using a bit of the curbs. That'd be a fast lap, says Magico. Well, let's see what answer the German man can give us. Through the left-hander, car complies beautifully there, aerodynamically, astronomical. As through the sector split, it is the fastest sector so far. Okay then, a little bit of zest has been added to this qualifying session. These two heavy hitters have been at it back and forth so many times. And once again, the two Ts are doing battle in the land of the rising sun. But whose star will shine brightest? Milo's retired from the session, meanwhile. What on earth's happened there? We're going to have to see what Buck 57 can see. As we go through the right-hander, I can only assume there's been a horrendous accident and a spin-off. Nothing showing there, but it looks like he will have hit the wall, just spinning out there through the first S section. Again, the curbs come back to bite. A man who's taking a good chomp off his lap time is Timmelele. Not the fastest Sector 2 so far, interestingly. So maybe a bit of compromise on the setups. I have no idea. I'm just going to assume that because that's what we commentators do. Through the final corners then, up to the line. Is it the fastest? No, it is not. It is only a 10th off, though, the fastest time so far. So the battle will rage on throughout this qualifying session, igniting like a monstrous fire. The battle between Timmelele and Thanassi will rage on. And surely the fire will not be put out during the rest of this evening. We will have to find out, though. Buck 57, meanwhile, up into P4 with his previous lap time. Good job there from the Mercedes man. Let's see who else is laying down their gauntlet. Slam's coming through the spoon curve, but not starting a lap time yet. It is, in fact, Maximus who is coming through, donning the number 3 on his car. Maybe as a tribute to Daniel Ricciardo, or maybe because he likes his things in threes. Possibly why his marriage collapsed. But through the first corners he goes then, and through the S section he goes. I want to point out that that was a joke. I do not know if he's married. I just want to make that quite clear before I get cancelled. Through the left-hander we go then. Keeps it together and slightly wide. Luckily keeps it out of the wall and keeps the car together. Thank goodness for that. Of course it's invalidated, but the main thing is he's not out of this qualifying session and he can go again very, very soon. Buck 57, meanwhile, is in the pits. It is in fact Thanassi who is on another outlap in this session. In this qualifying, he hasn't actually done a lap at the last minute at times. He's actually done it a bit earlier to have that clear track, and that's the compromise you have, of course. It's whether you choose to go for that clear track or whether you end up being behind another car, potentially going for the toe, but of course that compromises your speeds, your corner speeds. Very wide from Thanassi, but luckily he's not on a lap, so we can forget about it. Meanwhile, behind him is the lone Red Bull of Daniel Gilligan, leading the charge of the Bulls. Needing to sharpen their horns a little bit, currently in P7, which is slap bang pretty much in the middle of our competitors for today. So a decent start, but of course there is some progress yet to go, let's put it that way. Dirk has just gone out on an outlap. Meanwhile, I'm just watching the map to see what is going on. Thanassi actually pulls into the pits. So forget that. He will not be setting a lap time just yet. He has bided his time. Bided? Bode? What is the past tense of bide? I have no idea. Because you say this bodes poorly. That's in future tense, but then you say biding time. That's present tense. Now, that's a conversation for another day. We're here to watch Formula 1, not to have an English lesson. On board with Daniel Gilligan then, turn up the noise. I will leave you with the pure engine sound of the Red Bull powertrain's car. And enjoy a lap of the Suzuka circuit in full flow. Never mind, he's aborted the lap. A little mistake. I say a little mistake, a big mistake, as he had to shock correct the oversteer, pretty much. Lets the Ferrari go dutifully, but not how he would have wanted his almost last lap of the session to go. Could still get back to the pits, potentially strap on a new set of softs and get round and start another lap. But it is very, very tight on time. Ferraris are on an out lap, but he did let them through, which is very dutiful of him. Meanwhile, we wait for the final competitors to get out there and have an answer in this qualifying session. And AlphaTauri crosses the line. Never mind, they've pit. Why do I bother? But across the line goes Stark to start his qualifying lap. I can only assume Daniel Gilligan is going to go again. The battery fully recharged, and off he goes. Let's see what Stark is up to then through the first few corners. A lot of exit curve being used, but the car complies brilliantly. Skates over those curves like a skateboard. And that is about as good of an analogy as I'm going to come up with tonight, I think. Through the right-hander then. Through the left-hander we go. You really can see that. I don't need to tell you which direction he's steering in. Through the Degnas he goes. Full commitment. All guns blazing then. And he fires straight and true as he goes into the hairpin. Nothing skew-whiff about the shot this man is pulling. He's not pulling any shots, in fact. He is firmly flying in that Ferrari car. Giving it everything still. 100% commitment. Through the spoon curves we go. That first spoon, part of the spoon curve anyway. Rather a difficult one to try and hook together. You can just wash out wide, and that is where the lap time gets invalidated a lot of the time. It's just overcompensating on that exit curve. Through 130R, no lift at all, and the aerodynamics of the cars nowadays are so brilliant that they can keep a tighter line. Through the final chicane, then the Casio triangle, which is not a triangle at all. Pin the throttle down, keep it to the inside, across the line for Stark, and it is P4. A great little lap there from, the Ferrari driver as I expel the gases out of my body. Wheel spin there as Daniel expels tyre temperature, but goes up to P6. Decent lap. Wilco steers his ship up into P6. Meanwhile, Thanassi has just started his final qualifying lap of the session. Let's see what Vulcan can do then. Through the final chicane he goes, but he's coming into the pits. It will not be an improvement for the Alpine driver. He will start from last of our runners for today. Meanwhile, let's see who's coming through the final chicane, as my computer and my voice have a skill issue. The answer is, it is Slam, and he goes into P9. Maximus stays P10. Big Sam is also guaranteed P11 currently, although the times will improve. Slash Hanger comes into the pits, guaranteed at least, well, at most, P12. Not what he would have wanted. Dirk will be next across the line. Let's see what he can go for. It's P11. Let's see what Thanassi's doing. He's across the line. Buck 57 will finish in 5th. The other Aston Martin of Timmelele next across the line. A huge slide out of the Casio triangle. Across the line, it will not be an improvement. No more lap time to find from the Aston Martin driver as Stark retires from the session. I have no idea why. McLaren man of Buck 20 pulls into the pits. That's his session run. Let's see what Thanassi's up to then. Is he improving on his current lap time? I don't know, but it didn't look like it. No purple on my screen came up. Either my eyes are having a skill issue or he didn't improve. I'm going to say it's the second one because my eyes are perfect. Mostly. Through the Casio triangle. Pin the power. Flipping huge slide, but that's because he knows in full confidence that he has pole position for the Japanese Grand Prix. There will be no need to push the car too hard. He does nothing left to prove. The one lap time he set in the middle of the session was good enough for the Mercedes man, the championship leader. Magico says clap, so I too will give him a clap. Right, moving on. So, Thanassi on pole position, Timmelele in P2. These two have come to blows multiple times, but we will see if that is the case tomorrow. Buck 20 in P3, Stark with that clutch lap at the end in P4 for Ferrari. Ferrari having a very consistent result in 4th and 6th, so well done to them. Mercedes will hope their constructors' charge can begin firmly haunting McLaren as they start 1st and 5th with Buck 57 in 5th, using the first of his 2 numbers in his name. Daniel Gilligan in the lone Red Bull in P7. Miller 8th, Slam 9th, Maximus in 10th. The Irish connection needs to find, hopefully, a little bit of luck in the race. Dirk in P11 with Big Sam 12, Slash Hanger 13th, and finally Vulcan in the Lone Alpine in 14th place. As we've seen many times though, qualifying is one thing, racing is very much another thing, and we've seen the kinds of chaos that the Blackout Racing League can bring us. Many times. Too many times, in fact. My blood pressure has gone up significantly. I might die. But we'll find out what happens in this particular event then. We wait for the drivers then to line up on the grid for the Japanese Grand Prix. Of course, a 35% race we begin with. If you are familiar with the Blackout Racing League, then you will know that. But if you are not, firstly, again, welcome along. I hope you are enjoying the chaos that is unfolding. But we have a 35% race as the first race of the day, and then we have a 50% race for the second race. In this case, Japanese Grand Prix being our shorter race of the day, and then the Chinese Grand Prix being our second race and longest race. A bit more of a challenge, a bit more time management maybe to think about, a bit more self-preservation to think about. It's a long race, anything can happen. We saw that in Singapore last week. May have been last at the beginning of the race, but it didn't mean necessarily that you were out of the fight. Milo had a front wing damage, I'm pretty sure, at the beginning of the race, but came back to finish firmly in the points at the top end. Because the weather conditions caught people out, no less championship leader Thanassi. And since the clouds of doom are descending, who knows? We might have some rain on the way.
Formation.
Alex Jakes is going to annoy me, so let's look at the race director for this race. The sound of silence is sounding like my nightmares, but most of the top three in themselves are starting on the medium tyres. Stark, though, going on the aggressive side with his soft tyres. How many safety cars in the race? 72. Buck 57 on the hards, Wilco on the mediums, Daniel Gilligan also on the softs. In fact, it's a pretty mixed set of tyre choices on the grid today as they line up in the background behind these juicy graphics. What can Thanassi do then from pole position? But more importantly also, what can those behind do? Can they mount a challenge? Can they be straight in the hunt? We've seen Timmelele get great starts instead of Thanassi before. But will the roles be reversed?
Lap gets
Will
underway,
Thanassi
and every
have a
driver will be
comfortable
looking
race?
to
Shut
step in
up,
for the race,
Alex!
making sure their car is ready for the battle. Once
Never mind, it cut him off for me. I love this game. 5 red lights at the Japanese Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go at the land of the rising sun. Who will shine brightest? Timmelele with a decent start, but Thanassi actually gets a better start in the end. It's Stark behind though on his softs. Who has the momentum, who has the purchase, and gets up into P3, but round the outside goes Buck 20. Great little move. Milo, meanwhile, going down the inside of Wilco. No! Spins out. Milo down the order, spinning out towards the infield, resets onto the track. No need for a virtual safety car or a safety car, but that is the nightmare start for the McLaren man. It's not what he would have wanted at all. Meanwhile, the rest of the drivers get through safely, and we get racing. Thanassi leads, Timmelele second, Buck 20 regains that P3 after a scintillating start from Stark. P5, Buck 57, Wilco in 6th, Daniel Gilligan in 7th, but of course on those softs and will be in the chase. But look immediately, Buck 20 actually is the one that could go on the attack into the spoon curve. Nowhere near though, you have to be right alongside to consider a move into there. It's Timmelele now using the slipstream as Thanassi goes a bit wide into the first section of spoon. Consistency is key, they say. That's what's going to keep Thanassi at the top in this race. You heard my prediction, you heard who I thought was going to win, but immediately the slipstream being used by the Aston Martin, and immediately moves could potentially be done, defending to the inside of the Casio triangle, but Timmelele thinks smartly about it. It's a long race, of course. Might not seem like it being a 35%, but 19 laps, of course, anything can happen, and there's strategy to play on, and there's DRS to use later on. Slipstream, though, battery not being used, but clearly Timmelele with more straight line speed potentially, as down the inside into the first sets of corners goes Timmelele. The Aston Martin driver cleanly gets past, no histrionics from either driver, clean as you like, and up into P1 goes the Aston Martin. Straight away then the German man attacks and reaps the rewards of the offensive start. Fantastic stuff. Thanassi now has to focus on hopefully reeling him back in. You can see how powerful the slipstream is though all the time round this track. Meanwhile, Daniel Gilligan's had a bit of a moment, must have done, because he's now 1.4 seconds behind Wilco. On those soft tyres, surely he'll have the purchase. Magico goes for the into the barrier. Oh no, someone's gone straight on. What on earth happened? Big Sam went straight on at Degna 2. Luckily, it seems like no front wing damage whatsoever. Slash Hanger's apparently a minute and a half ahead of Vulcan. Either I'm blind or Codemasters need a new guide dog, because that's clearly not true. Anyway, whilst the timing screen has a skill issue, Milo's actually not too far behind these guys blissfully. The gaps really haven't spread out as much as I would have thought they would, and Milo, despite that earlier off, is actually still firmly in the hunt. So never count anyone out of this race. The gap now at about 0.3 of a second. Timmelele has a little bit more of a gap. Stark looking to the inside there, feinting a little move, but nothing doing there. This is a huge train of cars, meanwhile. My goodness me, you would have thought someone would have escaped off into the distance. Timmelele with the fastest lap, but surely Thanassi could go for another move here. The slipstream is so powerful. Thanassi shows the nose on the inside. Timmelele pretty much almost scared out of the way. And, well, Thanassi back into the lead of this race. Much space left by Timmelele. But DRS is enabled at the end. Well, I say at the end, it's already been enabled on this lap. So there's all to play for then. Look at this, 6 cars though up at the front. Qualifying might have had you believe it was going to be different, but already we are seeing something horrendous going on. My goodness, Buck 20 with a mistake in the background. Multiple warnings for Buck 20. Stark makes an opportunistic move down the inside, gets it done, and Wilco's going to displace the McLaren man potentially as well. He's already going to drop a whole host of positions. That one mistake has cost him so dearly that he's paying the price for the off. But he does keep P5 for now provisionally, but Wilco not making the most of that move means the Red Bull's onto him now. My goodness, what racing we are seeing already here in Blackout at Suzuka. Daniel to the inside. No, wasn't fully alongside. Luckily, not slammed into the side of, not by Slam, blissfully. It's Maximus that could have potentially T-boned the Red Bull on the rear end. Luckily, though, gets it all together, and away he goes once again. It's all happening then, my goodness. And again, the slipstream being so powerful cannot be overstated how powerful it is. Timmelele then firmly has Thanassi in his crosshairs with DRS enabled. Buck 57 keeping up very nicely to these two as well. Let's see then. Slipstream being deployed, DRS being deployed. No ERS being used just yet, though. A bit wide from Thanassi into turn 1, but can keep the momentum together for that second part. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Fantastic racing, says Magica. I'm inclined to agree as Daniel Gilligan gets past Big Sam with the assistance of DRS. Let's see what battles are materialising then. Buck 20's up into P4 again, meanwhile. He's managed to reclaim that track position, but that mistake has cost him the podium places for the moment. McLaren, of course, leading the Constructors, like I've said a billion times. My brother goes absolute madness. I'm inclined to agree. It is absolute madness. Or it's Sparta, I don't know which it is really. The man leading might agree so, because he's Greek. Thanassi leads by 0.4 of a second. Timmelele has him in his wheel tracks though. Don't count him out. Don't count anyone out of this race, in fact. The gaps hardly have stabilised or equalised or anything. It's hardly separated, in fact. These two, of course, have been in a class of their own. If Tom was here as well, maybe it would be a 3-way fight at this top position. But it's so far the fierce battle of the T's. Who is bringing the tea? Thanassi defends to the inside of the Casio triangle, and it's telegraphed by Timmelele smartly here. Using that opportunity to square off Thanassi's line, compromise his entrance into the corner, and so the exit of Timmelele means with DRS and Slipstream, he hardly has to use battery in order to sweep past. Down the inside he goes, and into turn number 1 before they even get there. It is comfortably in the lead for the Aston Martin man. Very intelligent move there, very intelligent telegraphing, and it promotes him up into the first place. Great stuff. Stark, meanwhile, gets back past Buck 20 with the assistance of DRS. That's the main thing, of course. DRS assistance is going to be making a difference at this race. Stark does get back into DRS range. Those soft tyres still working actually very well, all things considered. 5 laps in to this Japanese Grand Prix. I feel like I can hardly breathe with all the action that's happened so far. Little bit of equalisation happening now. We have these top 3, of course. Timmelele leading with Thanassi and... Oh, Daniel Gilligan, something's happened. I've no idea what's happened. Going very slowly indeed, but luckily no front wing damage on the Red Bull. No idea what happened there. Meanwhile, Milo is up into P10. McLaren man making good progress then. Had the off at the beginning. and is mauling his opposition slowly but surely. Qualified quite high up the grid despite his off. Unfortunately, had a problem on lap 1 when trying to get past Wilco. Had a good start, but unfortunately that spin has put him in a bit of a compromised position. Hopefully not too compromised, though. Up the front, though, you thought the battles would be over. The answer is no, they are not. Through the Casio triangle we go. Daniel Gilligan's retired from the session, meanwhile. Safety car is out, and that makes things very interesting indeed. What on earth happened to Daniel Gilligan? I have no idea, because the game won't let me see what happened. Either stopped in a precarious position or crashed in a precarious position. I have no idea. And unfortunately, we will never know. But into the pits come a bunch of drivers then, making the most of the beginning of this safety car window. Stark comes in, Buck 20 comes in, Slam and Big Sam. Big Sam going for the Grand Slam. Who knows? First SC. What did I say, 72? I'm 1 through, and it's lap 6. I might be slightly optimistic on my guess, but you never know. It could happen. I am the optimism overlord, after all. Stark onto a fresh set of mediums. That will surely be his one stop to the end of the race, seeing how the safety car should stay out until the end. Buck 20 on the softs. Very interesting strategic move. I'm guessing only doing the one stop, so let's see if they hold out. Slam also on the softs, and Big Sam is not on the softs. He hasn't gone for the double S strategy. Just a little. It is Codemasters. Crucially also, it is EA. And where EA is about, chaos rings out. So here's the situation then. Safety car is out here on lap number 6. And they've already caught up the rest of the drivers. So Stark and Buck 20 and co have a free pit stop to their name. And that could put them in really good stead. Now, the rest of the pack have to decide whether they choose to pit as well. Because, of course, in the leader's case, they already passed the pit lane. There was no way they were going to do it unless they pretty much did a right angle turn into their 3-point turn. Which used to be a feature on the UK driving test. Nowadays is not a feature. Nowadays, I'd put the Austin Powers in the driving test, where you have to get in a very small gap, and if you hit the wall, you die. I'm kidding, you fail the test, basically. But anyway, safety car, Timmelele is currently in the lead. The 2 Mercedes, Captain Wilco, Maximus, are your top 5. But now they have to decide whether they come into the pits, and the answer is no, they do not. And that's an interesting call, I must say. That is a very interesting call, actually, because I know they'll have newer and fresher tyres at the end of the race. But Stark and co behind, with that pit stop, Stark could be on for 2 consecutive wins in the Blackout Racing League. I had a thought in the back of my head of saying Stark. But then I thought there won't be any safety cars, there won't be too much drama here. I'm going to say it's Thanassi that's going to win. So far, not in first place, and so far looking like, unless there's another safety car, his bacon will not be saved. Which is not what he would have wanted after starting on pole position with just 1 lap in qualifying. Felt like a certified Seb Vettel 2012 moment, I must say. Let's talk about a few bits of history from the Japanese Grand Prix then. This is a venue that has seen many a triumph and also many a controversy. Many a controversy in its time, should I say. Let's start off in 1987. It was Mansell that crashed here. He had to, well, he had a slim chance of winning the Drivers' Championship ahead of his teammate, Nelson Piquet. He's an interesting man, for lack of a better term. Anyway, he could have had a chance of winning the championship, but crashed in practice and was unable to race because he injured himself. Bad job. In 1988, it was the venue where Senna, the great Ayrton Senna, won his first Drivers' World Championship. In 1989, it's a race where he should have taken it to the last round, although it was Prost that won the championship because of what was completely scandalous. And when people keep talking about Abu Dhabi 2021, yes, it still upsets me, but if you go back to 1989, where there was genuine corruption from the French head of what was then called FISA, which is now the FIA, I can't imagine what you would have felt. You actually might have died from having too much blood pressure at how scandalous that particular race was. FIA scam, Senna should have won that. Well, quite. Although, he should have been disqualified, really, for having assistance getting back on the track and starting the car. Why they actually disqualified him is very interesting. It was for, and this is what they actually said, for not completing the full race distance. So what about the other drivers that cut the chicane? How about that? Safety car is in. While I've been blabbing on about Suzuka so far, maybe we'll have another safety car period and have a bit more talk about the wonderful history of the Suzuka track. When does Timmelele pull the trigger? Still going very, very slowly indeed through the Casio triangle, and look at this. The rain has begun. I said the rain was a defining factor, and it could still happen yet. Timmelele pulls the trigger, and look at this. Buck 57's got an incredible restart. Doesn't choose to fight his teammate. Starting on the hards, by the way. I didn't even notice that. Well, fair play to him then for having a hard on. I can't say I envy him, but anyway, let's have a look at what's happening here. Timmelele keeps the lead from Thanassi. Buck 57. Vulcan's plummeted down the order. What on earth's happened there? Big Sam is up into P12. Stark up into P9 already then, and chasing down Slashhanger. Fourth place, though, is Wilco, his teammate. Maximus 5th, Dirk 6th, Milo 7th, Slashhanger in the Alfa Romeo 8th, Stark in 9th and chasing down furiously fast. Buck 20 in 10th, Slam 11th, Big Sam in 12th, Vulcan are last of the current runners in this race. And so now we find out how quickly the track will deteriorate. That is the age-old question, and hopefully we can find that out very soon then. Let's see who the big winners are then, as the gap between Timmelele and Thanassi increases to almost 7/10 of a second then. Just trying to break that gap and break that hugely powerful slipstream. Well, so far, it's Maximus and Dirk that have found the benefits of this race so far. Up 5 places for the both of them since the start of this race. Stark and Buck 20 down a bunch of positions, but remember, of course, they pitted. But there is rain falling, and who knows how quickly the track will deteriorate. You are about to find out before your very eyes then. This is what the tyre situation is looking like then. A bunch of people on new tyres, as I said, in the safety car. Taking advantage of it. There's a yellow flag in Sector 3. Slashhanger's had a problem. It's a spin. Something's happened. It might have been a move from Stark that caused it. I have no idea. But Stark, meanwhile, is looking for the move on Milo and gets past comfortably. And Buck 20's going to do the same. Not even much of a resistance from Milo there. Hardly in the same league and race currently as Buck 20 on those fresh softs, just going up. Meanwhile, Slam and Vulcan have pulled the trigger. Nothing to lose and deciding that it is time. Vulcan having to change his front wing, not ideal at all. Slashhanger also going on to the intermediates. So let's see how quickly the track is deteriorating. Through Degner 1. Sector 1 is only 2/10 down currently, and you'd have to say, based on the visuals in front of you, it's too early for the intermediates. But I've said that before and I've been wrong. I've also said it was time for intermediates and it wasn't. So again, I'm just wrong. But that's what makes me such a great shouty man. Timmelele leads then by almost a second, then he's really improved that gap massively there. Just trying to break the slipstream, just trying to break DRS, so we can have a comfortable run towards that rainy period. Keeping consistent, these top 3 are so far. Great stuff to see. Stark, meanwhile, up into P6 and chasing down Maximus. Maximising his race so far, that's for sure. P5 currently for the AlphaTauri man, and I'm watching closely at the intermediate gaps behind. Not really much of a change so far. Relatively similar pace coming out of the hairpin between Slam and Dirk, so not really as much time as it would have wanted. Buck 20, meanwhile, is looking very feisty indeed. Looked to the outside briefly, enabled the defence from the Ferrari man. But the exit from Stark is wonderful, and the slipstream is great. The battery usage makes the Energizer Bunny want to die, but it means that Stark is now up into P5, and cleverly, oh goodness me, Maximus there, they were side by side, his front wing clips the rear of Stark. But I think cleverly, actually, Stark held back a little bit, just so Buck 20 did not have that same opportunity and advantage, but it doesn't matter either way, because Maximus, well, the Red Sea was parted as he moved very kindly out of the way indeed for Buck 20. But as I said, probably not of his own accord. Captain Wilco is onto the intermediates meanwhile, as I've been waffling about that. And that gets very saucy indeed. Let's see what his time's looking like against the dry runners up ahead. DRS enabled on this lap. The gap roughly 0.8 of a second as they go through the hairpin. Thanassi with a great exit there, just bringing that gap down a little bit. Slashhanger with a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. Naughty boy. Towards the spoon curve then. Is anyone a spoon in this race? Not so far, I would say. It's been a very good showing. As Magico said, there's been some fantastic racing, and so the fantastic racing will continue then for the foreseeable future. Stark then catching up. Buck 57, slowly but surely. Gap was 4 seconds at the beginning of the lap, and now it's 3.4. Buck 20, meanwhile, the battle is going to rage on between these two for quite some time. These two will have to work quite smartly, of course. DRS will be enabled. Buck 20 on those softs. But Buck 20 will have ferocious pace, of course. I mean, these two, of course, will have pretty similarly ferocious pace, but they've just got to be playing it smart here because they're going to lose time to the cars ahead here in what could be a very important phase of the race. Buck 20 to the inside then as we enter into turn 1. Still side by side between the two of them, then choosing to fight it out. Deciding not to play it too intelligently, I see. Fair enough then. Keep the synapses firing, boys. It's a long race to go, although he has caught up. It's 3 seconds between himself and Buck 57. So I want to cry. I've done it again. I've predicted the wrong thing. 2.5 seconds now, the gap. As Maximus comes into the pits, Wilco promoted up into P9. The gap between himself and Dirk, 16.8 seconds. Although it has gone up dramatically in the first few corners, so that is not ideal. The rain's still spittling down, though. Still spittling down, bit by bit. Track's still not looking like it's time for the intermediate tyres, though. Really not looking like it. There's not enough of a sheen. And I do like me a good sheen. I like a track that's looking nice and shiny. But it's not looking very shiny. And I don't think it's quite time for the intermediate tyres, which will, I have no doubt, overheat in these particular conditions. Maximus, meanwhile, pitted onto soft tyres. And we're going to see very quickly if the soft tyres were the right gamble at the moment. The answer is, it's looking like yes. Because through the hairpin, there you go. Look at the exit Maximus has got on those softs. Almost ploughing into the back of Captain Wilco, whose ship is not sailing on full force. It's really not gone his way on those intermediate tyres, and immediately Maximus up into P9. Timmelele into the pits, meanwhile. The first of the front runners, and you'd have to say, on evidence, it's not going to be the intermediate tyres. It is just not time yet, and no, he does not. He pulls the trigger, goes on to the softs, and out of the pits he goes. Don't lose touch of these two, though. Stark and Buck 20. Stark has repassed Buck 20, but remember, these two pitted under that safety car, and it could still all go their own way. If it doesn't get to that intermediate period, and others around them have pit, well then, it could just get very interesting indeed for these two. And perhaps we'll reap the benefits. So now it's up to Thanassi and Buck 57. 1 and 2 currently for Mercedes, which is great news for them. Vulcan, meanwhile, something has happened. Still keeps it on the road, though, blissfully for him. And on he continues. Of course, while there are not many people racing today, and while normally in Formula 1, up to 10th place is the point scorers, should I say. In the Blackout Racing League is up to 15th, which means everyone will score at least 2 points or more today. Yay! How great! It is great. It really is not time for those intermediates yet, and look at this. It's about to get... well, it's about to toboggan downhill. The spirits of Buck 57 about to be sent plummeting as Stark is absolutely on the charge. And Buck 20, crucially behind him, is out of DRS range. So that's very interesting stuff indeed. RD Magicos, yay, points! Damn right. Could get very interesting. Thanassi does pull the trigger and does come into the pits meanwhile. Onto the soft tyres he goes. So does choose to eventually come into the pits and fit on a new set of soft boots to his car. Timmelele then out of the Casio triangle, down the main straight. Best last sector. And I have no doubt will undercut Thanassi actually hugely. My goodness, he does. Crikey. Straight through goes Timmelele. The gap 2 seconds between himself and Thanassi. So that undercut is extremely powerful. That fresh lap on those fresh soft tyres. Of course, 1 lap older. But Timmelele, the mental game, the psychological advantage is up in his head. Buck 57 has been overtaken by Stark, and the lead of the race has changed then. Buck 57, of course, still to pit in this race and could still have an influence on who wins this race. You never know, or at least the positions that his teammate makes up. We'll have to wait and see then. It's the battle of the Bucks, meanwhile, bringing the fizz. Let's see who comes out on top then. Buck 20 on those newer soft tyres. 7 laps old, of course. No idea what that will mean in terms of the stipulations of its pace, but we're about to find out. Still making comfortable time on his Buck counterpart up ahead. Down towards 130R then. The gap 0.6 of a second and increasing. Buck 20, of course, notoriously loves a high downforce setup. Can't get enough of it. The aerodynamics overlord in that McLaren. The gap then 0.7 of a second, and actually not the greatest Casio triangle for the Buck 20. It will not be an overtake into turn 1, and that means he loses a bit of touch to Stark up ahead, who just increases that gap bit by bit. Timmelele, meanwhile, I have no doubt, will get straight past his teammate Dirk. DRS and ERS usage. Probably mainly DRS, but a comfortable pass, absolutely textbook, and up into P6 for the Aston Martin driver. The chase is on then for Timmelele. See what progress he can make. It's still not time for the intermediate tyres. And all the time, my goodness, I think there was contact made there. My goodness, the overspeed Timmelele has is absolutely unbelievable. And he's being held up so much behind Big Sam. Surely to the outside of the Degners, he'll get it done. Round the outside he goes, and Timmelele does indeed get it done. Does Thanassi get it done? No, he does not. He has to wait behind Big Sam just a little bit longer. As we head into the hairpin. Never mind, Big Sam just does a Noah's Ark and moves out of the way. It's Red Sea, it's Moses. Forget it. The point is, Thanassi is now right on the back of Timmelele once again, and the battle between them rages on. Into the pits comes Slam onto the medium tyres. The intermediate tyres was not the right gamble. The rain's slowly spittling down still, so there is still a chance the weather has a play in this race. But I doubt it will be the right time to come onto the intermediates before the end of this race, based on how slowly the track has evolved. You can see even slash hangers come in to fit on a new set of medium tyres. Wilco and Vulcan still persevering on the intermediate tyres, still thinking that there is a chance that it could happen. Buck 20 behind, meanwhile, DRS wide open, a big suck of the slipstream. Slash hanger comes out of the pits, luckily not into the path of Buck 20 or Buck 57, who run rings around him like Sonic the Hedgehog. Up into P2 for Buck 20. Buck 57, though, still in the podium positions for the moment. Could be a pass by Thanassi into turn. No, there isn't. I looked at the map, and sure enough, there was not. Well then, Miller currently in P4, by the way. Unsung hero for me. Still managing to keep it together, which is good news for him. However, he has some very, very hungry soft runners behind. Look how fast they run through the left-hander into the Degner corners. On board with Timmelele then, as he looks to dispatch Milo. I have no doubt he will do just that. To the outside of the hairpin. Brake as late as you dare. My God, how late was that? Timmelele with extreme confidence, and Milo will move out of the way. I have no doubt of Thanassi as well. We know his race is not with them and will just be doing himself and them no favours. So the battle will continue, but here is your leader by just under 2 seconds. Stark in the lead then, with just a handful of laps to go in this race. I will add that Buck 57 still has to pit in this race. If he doesn't, he is disqualified, which would be very naughty indeed. And after only an hour of, just over an hour, of streaming the Blackout Racing League, Vulcan pulls into the pits. Meanwhile, the intermediate gamble has not paid off at all for any of the drivers, as he goes onto a fresh set of soft tyres. It will still be, I believe, 4 points. 3 or 4 points, can't remember specifically. I'm going to say 4, just to give us your optimism. 4 points for the Alpine team, despite everything that's happened in this race. And of course, we still have the Chinese Grand Prix to go, so anything could happen. Still, those soft tyres working well for Buck 20 behind, just gaining a tiny bit of time through Sector 1. Meanwhile, Milo does finally come into the pits for a fresh set of soft boots. His chase will be on, I'm sure, for Big Sam. With just a few laps to go. 10 lap mediums versus 0 lap old softs. You might call me crazy, but I'm pretty sure Milo will get quite close come the end of this race. We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Thanassi has got past Timmelele. So just trading blows with the DRS. And there has to be a calculation here, mathematically, of what you go about doing. Do you end up being the man that's behind on that last lap? So as you go onto that main straight, onto lap number 19, you do get past with the DRS assistance. Or do you go aggressive? Do you do it on the lap before and then try and escape away? But then that leaves you vulnerable on the last lap, potentially through 130R. There's all kinds of mind games and calculations that the drivers have to do in deciding whether they can, or, well, who wins the race, who has the balance of power during the course of this event. Stark increases his gap to 2.5 seconds, meanwhile, and Buck 57's hard tyres have actually come back into play. Meanwhile, here's someone who's going to make a very, very saucy move. Why have I used caps locks? Slash Anger's going past and has unlapped himself from Buck 57. So there's your confirmation then. As I've said many a time, if you need a confirmation ever, that new tyres are the meta. there's the proof in the pudding for you. Lap number 17, just under 3 tours of the Suzuka track to go. With your leader here, Stark. Fully loaded up on iron. And has driven a steely drive through this Grand Prix. Pit under that safety car, and it's proved to be the right thing to do despite the rain coming down. Maybe others would have thought it would have been time for the intermediates and hold it out. But not to be. Not to be. In the end, Stark is the one that is so far taking the plaudits of this race in the Blackout Racing League, although there is still a long way to go. Thanassi catching up his teammate all the time. His hard tyre shodden teammate. Like I said, still might have an influence in terms of what positions some of the drivers finish in this race. Timmelele's just trying to hang on to the coattails of that Mercedes. Thanassi has really pulled the trigger on his pace, though. Let's find out what his battery is saying. The answer is they're on about the same, so it's not exactly... It's not exactly like one is inherently more dominant than the other. Thank you, Mr. Impresta, also known as my dad. Love you, Dad. Through onto lap number 18 then. Thanassi currently holds the power over Timmelele. But will his stronghold be strongly held? The answer is yes. Timmelele does not have an answer currently. But he is the man behind. Like I said, that is currently the calculation he'll want to have as they head on to lap number 19. He just needs to hang on to the back of that Mercedes. He's really pulling the trigger though. Buck 57 has had a problem. What's happened? No front wing. He's met barrier. He's given him a firm slap across the chops. And it's ended badly for him. P5 without a front wing. I thought he would have had an influence towards the latter stages of this race, but not to be. Pitting with 1 lap to go, doing a Sebastian Vettel. And if he doesn't pit, well, he's just done Mercedes a disservice in the Constructors' Championship, which is not what he would have wanted at all. Stark then leads by 4 seconds then. Through spoon curve he goes. He has not been a spoon at all this race. It's been anything but that. And you might have called me crazy for saying that Milo wouldn't get close to Big Sam. Well, I'll tell you what. It's only 5 seconds behind from what was, I believe, 14. So, I am visionary. Buck 57, meanwhile. Timmelele, oh my goodness me, dipping out from the slipstream. This is the battle you want to see. Stark firmly through the Casio triangle and has a comfortable lead on this race. Timmelele behind, though, will have DRS and has a great run through the Casio triangle. Almost pushing Thanassi through the Casio triangle. A bit of a squirm on the power. A bit of unease as he will deploy his battery. Have DRS. His final chance to get ahead of the Mercedes man, I have no doubt. Will he go for it? No, just not close enough. Not enough confidence, however. Having a little bit of a better run through these first corners, and the battle between these two is definitely not over by any stretch of the imagination. Buck 57 does in fact come in and will score good points. Look how close it is between these two then. These two have gone head to head, nose to tail so many times in the Blackout Racing League. Left nothing on the table, no stone unturned. What are their batteries looking like? Thanassi on yellow, Timmelele slightly higher then. And of course we'll have the slipstream. Wilco still persevering on those intermediate tyres. He's now 43 seconds behind the next closest competitor. Will be slightly closer than that, of course, because Buck 57 is on the soft tyres. But goodness me. What could have been for Captain Wilco? The rain came. You would have thought he steered his ship in the right direction, but it was not to be for the second Ferrari man. Meanwhile, in much, much more contrasting fortunes. Meanwhile, Maximus has had a problem. What on earth's gone on there? Milo's now up into P6. But here's one man with much more contrasting fortunes. His teammate pit under the safety car and never looked back. And Stark, again, for the second consecutive time, he did it in Singapore. He wins in Suzuka. The Ferrari man takes another win in the Blackout Racing League on F1 23. The penalties being applied means Thanassi and Timmelele will get on the podium, which is great for them. But Stark made the most of that safety car, made the most of his medium tyres, and the gamble paid off. When it looked like the rain came down to dampen his spirits, the fire lit inside, and the prancing horse galloped its way to the top step. Milo does get P5 on the line, courtesy, I believe, of Big Sam having a penalty. McLaren 4th and 5th then. Very nice start. You got Magico's seal of approval. Fantastic racing. Fantastic racing all round on the whole. Incredible stuff. Maximus in the end, very slow indeed. I can only assume he has no fuel left. Incredible. What on earth happened there? Slam and Wilco are going to fight this all the way down to the line meanwhile. No, they're not. The exit from Slam is just meteorically better. AlphaTauri will have 9th and 10th to their name. The second Ferrari finishing in 11th place. Well, technically, they're all winners in Ferrari because they all had ones in their finishing position. Doesn't really matter how many ones they had, just take my word for it. The point is, driver of the day is Stark, and I would have to agree, didn't put a foot wrong all race since the beginning. Comes through to take yet another win. Did it in Baku, scintillating in Singapore, and superb in Suzuka. A track teamed with history has seen some phenomenal racing, and Stark is the beneficiary of the safety car and incredible pace on those mediums to take a well-deserved victory for the Scuderia. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his 3rd win of the season. Incredible stuff. Thanassi and Timmelele not too far behind then. Championship leader will still extend his advantage a little bit, which is good news for him. And where the rain looked to threaten, it did not pose as much of a threat as we nearly would have imagined. Here are the results then. Stark takes the plaudits and the win in Suzuka with Thanassi and Timmelele P2 and P3. Buck 20 might have had that penalty applied at the end, but P2 on track and fastest lap will surely boost his spirits just a little bit. Milo, a fantastic recovery up into P5. Big Sam 6th, Dirk 7th, Buck 57 in 8th at the end. Maximus, I'm pretty confident, ran out of fuel at the end, so desperately unfortunate for the AlphaTauri driver, but finishes right next to his teammate Slam in 10th. Captain Wilco 11th with Slashhanger, Vulcan and Daniel Gilligan in the Red Bull, taking 2 points and the final points at this Grand Prix. Well then, the land of the rising sun. And it dawned the same victor as last time. Stark won again. A great job there, though, from the Ferrari man, I've got to say. A common stock W, says my brother, and I have to say he's absolutely right. There's nothing but W Stark is taking today, and the points are there for you all to see in Formula 1 terms, although in Blackout terms, he's got a juicy 30 points, which is very nice indeed. We encourage much more vast opportunity here in Blackout. So there is incentive to fight for those lower positions in 14th, 15th, etc. Great stuff then. Well, you know where we head next. We've just been to the land of the rising sun, but now we enter the Twilight Realm. Considering recent goings-on in the world, that's probably not the right thing to say, but the point is, soon enough, we go to the Chinese Grand Prix. I'll give a little bit more of a history lesson then, while we are waiting for, firstly, the beat drop so I can transition this correctly, and also to just run down that race. My goodness me, Stark, an incredible drive, well done him, Timmelele and Thanassi, great racing between the two of them, no histrionics and no dramatics between the two of them, so well done them, and great racing all round from absolutely everyone from start to finish. That was an absolute pleasure to watch and commentate over, as it always is. My other history lesson at this track is, of course, like I said, there's been many a controversy and whatnot. 1990, well, Senna, the only way he was going to win the championship that day, because Pole, for some reason, was on the dirty side. Interesting. But the only way he was going to win the championship was if Prost failed to finish. So he made sure that happened. It took him out. Not for a nice meal. Crashed him. And it was a big crash. And, well, he won the championship. His second world championship out of his 3 in Formula 1. Raikkonen winning in 2005. If you haven't seen that race, do it. It is absolutely incredible. One of the best races you will ever see. Well, that concludes my history lesson and the Japanese Grand Prix. Tune in soon for China. Well, hello everyone. Back we are again for more Blackout Racing League. And once again, as I've turned my microphone volume down to a mouse's whisper. But, if we were to do the Blackout Racing League as it should, it would be like this. That's the second time I've made that joke and it wasn't as funny as the first. And the first time was pretty bad. So, I'm just checking now to see if all the drivers are back and ready and raring to go for qualifying at the Chinese Grand Prix. The race first appeared, of course, in 2004. It was a race where Michael Schumacher was already the world champion and then proceeded to have a hooner. A significant hooner, actually. I can't even remember. I think spun out and a bunch of other bad things. It was his teammate, though, Rubens Barrichello, that won the race. In 2005, it was where Renault won the Constructors' Championship. That's the one. Don't forget to switch back in a minute. Hey, Dirk, stop giving me PTSD. It wasn't my fault, is what I claim. But the point is, we are back. And here we are. We are all raring and ready to go then. And we are getting straight into qualifying. Like I said, though, conception was 2004. Nowadays, it's gone past the teenage phase and is entering its university life. Unfortunately, it didn't graduate very well because we had a hiatus of 4 years from it. So it's still an angsty teenager. But hopefully it doesn't bite back like an angsty teenager. Hopefully it's nice and smooth, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the correct analogy for that particular occasion is. But anyway, we have the same 14 as we did last time. There were whispers, there were inklings of hope. That potentially a Williams or a Haas could join the fray. But no, that was not to be. I can confirm. And so here we are for qualifying and the race at the Chinese Grand Prix. Same qualifying format, different race distance, unless they've given up hope on the Chinese Grand Prix being a 50% race, which I can't say I blame them for, because I don't really like driving China myself. But maybe we'll see some surprises happen at the Chinese Grand Prix then. At the French Grand Prix, a track that isn't traditionally on the F1 2023 calendar, it was Timmelele that took the win. On Portimao, it was Thanassi. So on the third and final track, Red Bull have a history of ploughing through various power unit suppliers. Well, nowadays they claim to have their own, but secretly, we know it's still the Honda power unit. They just take all the credit. But anyway, like I said though, I forgot what I was saying. Timmelele won at the French Grand Prix, Thanassi won at the Portuguese Grand Prix. So let's see who takes that final win, that elusive Chinese Grand Prix win that we haven't seen anyone take part in since 2019 in real life. At that race, it was Sir Lewis Hamilton who's the last winner of the Chinese Grand Prix in the modern era so far. It's apparently set to be coming back in 2024, so they claim, so they hope it will. But at this point, I've given up all hope, and I'm just assuming that we're just never going to have another Chinese Grand Prix. So let's see who's first out on the track. The answer is, it's Slam! Slam is first out onto the track. And hopefully in for an absolute slobber knocker in his AlphaTauri. We have Dirk behind Milo, both McLarens actually out, as well as the Ferrari of Captain Wilco, both Alfa Romeos as well. Vulcan's out of the pits, and Maximus has just started his outlap right now. The rest of the drivers waiting patiently in the pit lane for this qualifying session. Chinese Grand Prix, another circuit designed by everyone's favourite track designer, Hermann Tilke. I'll say another one for the edit. Chinese Grand Prix, another track designed by everyone's most hated track designer, Hermann Tilke. There we go. I think I balanced that out quite nicely. Speaking of which, what is the best track Hermann Tilke has ever made? I would argue it's either Kota or Sepang. Out of those two. Kota is just such a unique track in terms of they had to form the land around it to make the track, which is just insane. And then Malaysia, because it's Malaysia, and it's just an absolutely brilliant track. And I wish it was still in Formula 1. And as a classic track code masters take notes. Here we are, though, with Slam slicing his way through a lap of the Chinese Grand Prix. Keep the throttle in for as long as possible. When the car feels like it begins to wash with understeer, braking and turning at the same time, trail braking your way through. Hug the apex as much as you can, but then get on the throttle as early as possible. Let the power take you away as you head down towards the hairpin corner. On the throttle, brake as late as you dare, about 100 metre board. Nip the car in, pinch the apex, and it's an absolutely beautiful compliance from the AlphaTauri car. Towards the left-hander then. In F1 games gone previous, it's very easy to spin here because the cars felt like hovercrafts. Nowadays, the hover's gone out and it's just a craft now, so I'm very happy with that. Through the right-hander we go, into the left. Traditionally, one of the most tricky corners on the F1 games, although on this game, I'm sure, vastly easier because of the vastly improved handling and physics. Into the left-hander, for some reason choosing 6th gear, which is definitely not 6th gear, because the wheel's having a skill issue. He's actually in 5th gear and on the pedal to the metal stuff as he goes down the main straight. A huge straight, this. Prime opportunity for DRS at this track. In fact, more than just a prime opportunity. If you have DRS and the car's ahead of you, it's good night Irene for them, essentially. Down into the hairpin, brake as late as you damn well dare. Previous games, it's been 100 metres, maybe a bit more in this one, but you want to be as confident as you can. Into the left-hander. Don't invalidate it after you've just transgressed the Chinese Grand Prix circuit, and it's a 1 minute 32.9. Let's see what Dirk behind can do as he crosses the line. It's a 1 minute 33.6, and the Alfa Romeo Big Sam, that's a 1 minute 33.1. Not too far off the pace there from Big Sam. Big tings from him. Big Sam has slammed his way up into P2. Slams in P1, though. Buck 20, though, immediately takes that mantle with a 1 minute 32.0. Still waiting for the 1 minute 31 barrier to be breached. Can Milo do it? As he crosses the line, he cannot. It's 1 minute 33.9. Well, I heard whispers that Milo doesn't like this track very much, and he's clearly not gelling with it very well so far. As Captain Wilco does manage to slide his way up into P3. Very nice indeed. Couldn't quite sail through the intermediate phase as he would have hoped for. But he's come back from battle, wounded, bruised, but back on his feet, crucially. Or on his wheels, rather. Because, well, do you think he has feet? Look at the car. Are you stupid? It's his teammate behind, though, that has just started a lap and has gone through the hairpin. Pin the power down through the left-hander. Does he lift? Let's find out. No, he does not, but it's Buck 57 who goes up into P2 for Mercedes. Through the two left-handers as I have a hiccup issue. Which is interesting because I haven't eaten anything. Through the left-hander. Pinch it in and keep it hugged to the right-hander. A little bit of time to get the car straightened up. And then onto the back straight. And look at this. He is going to get a tremendous tow from his teammate. Brilliant with DRS wide open. Wilco doing the same thing. Deploying the DRS, and that was a very handy bit of slipstream. A great piece of teamwork from the Ferrari boys. Take notes, Ferrari in real life. Of course, I have a hiccup as soon as I say that. But through the last corner, Stark's had a great lap, and so it continues, not invalidating track limits. A great lap from Stark, puts his iron on, and goes up into P5. Just under a 10th off his teammate once again. And the last time he did that at a Japanese Grand Prix, he went on to win the race. So you never know what could happen here. Vulcan crosses the line meanwhile, goes up into P10. Not too far off Milo currently. Milo not gelling with this track whatsoever, but let's see what Daniel Gilligan can do then. The charge of the Bulls, sharpened his horns, across the line he goes, and it is P11. The horns are blunt. That is not ideal. But let's see what the others have in store. The answer is Slashhanger is ready for a lap of this circuit. Big Sam's up into P6. Sorry? Great effort from him. Why do I have skill issues? Can I just stop having hiccup issues? I beg. It makes my job, my life, it makes just everything very difficult. I'm going to quickly sort out my hiccups. Exhibit A. I'm going to sort out my hiccups and I'll be right back. Skill issue sorted. We're watching Slashhanger go around the Chinese Grand Prix circuit. Slashhanger's left the session, never mind. He's actually teleported into the pits. That is aliens in full effect. Why do I still have hiccups? I want to die. In China. Bet you didn't know that one, Mr. Announcer. Daniel Gilligan wheeled into the pits then, and Red Bull will have a stern conversation. In the form of, you're sacked, we're bringing in Max Verstappen. I'm kidding, of course. I would not wish that upon him. And in fact, he is the only option Red Bull have currently. But you never know. He might be in the dumps at the moment, but qualifying is so much more than that, as we're suddenly going to have a spicy affair between the two protagonists in the championship currently. Championship leader right behind Monsieur Timmelele. Who's going to be on pole position for today? That is the big question. Well, I am going to actually neck a goose. Just slice it if I have another hiccup. Who's going to be on pole position? Well, I think, personally, it will be a close one between Thanassi and Timmelele once again. It will be interesting if it isn't, and Buck 20 is in fact the Chinese overlord. But that is all for you to find out. Let's see what happens then. Weaving to get some heat into those tyres. I've just had a hiccup. BRB, I'm going to neck a goose. If you're a vegan or love animals, sorry. I said it. Let's ride on board with Thanassi then. Have a lap while I sort my hiccups out. Turn up your volumes. And enjoy a lap of the Shanghai International Circuit. Well, Timmelele crosses the line first at 1 minute 31.2. Here comes Thanassi, though, pushing it to the absolute limit, and actually goes P5. So what on earth happened while I was away getting my hiccups sorted out? I have no idea. But Timmelele right on the pace, championship leader, can only settle for P5 at the moment. But oh, that's another goose. Sorry, guys. I think it's okay. I don't want to speak too soon. I'm scared. I'm gonna kill another goose. Do you know what? Forget it. I don't care. I'm powering through. Let's assess the situation so far then, before I actually slice another goose. Timmelele's first. Buck 20 is second. Slam, though, is now P3. Buck 57 P4. Stark P5. Thanassi down to P6 now. Wilco has steered his ship into P7. Stop hiccuping. Milo in 8th, Dirk 9th, and Big Sam rounds out the top 10 so far. So, the Chinese Grand Prix qualifying then, throwing up some surprises, and with just 4 minutes to go, there's only a handful or just the last lap that drivers have to do before they finish this qualifying session. Daniel Gilligan, meanwhile, luckily for him, has improved his time. My God, that was huge. Sorry, everyone. He's up into P12, though. He's out of the 134s. Good job, him. Miller up into P8 as well, so a much, much more improved time from the McLaren man. TMI, water came out of my nose there, so if I still have hiccups after that, more geese are dying, let's put it that way. Anyway, hopefully we can continue without any further interruption, I should hope. Let's look at someone who is still on the charge. His name is Vulcan. He's Alpine's hope and dream. If he gets higher than P13, I'll buy him some bream. This is why I don't write music. But anyway, or rather I don't write lyrics, but through the hairpin we go, almost into the final corner. Hardly any battery left to play with. Absolutely nothing left on the table. All the aces played, and it's a minor improvement and still remains P13. So it's no bream for Vulcan, I'm very sorry, but the game's the game. Anyway, let's see who else is on an outlap. Start currently in P5. Both Ferraris are on outlaps. And so is Milo and Maximus. Eminem out and about. Maximus has overtaken Milo, though, around the outside. Incredible move there on the track map in the bottom right. Meanwhile, it's Dirk and co who are on the charge then on another lap of the Chinese Grand Prix. Although, based on evidence, Dirk apparently isn't using any battery. So, I can't read much into that. So, is Big Sam on a lap at least? I can't tell. It's still not showing me whether he has any battery or not. I'm going to say he isn't on a lap because his red light at the back is flashing. Although, I assume he will start a lap at the end of this because he has no other choice. Everyone on outlaps then. The battle for pole position not over. As everyone warms up the tyres. Gets them all nice and toasty. Caresses them. And I'm proud to announce that no geese now have to die, and no geese I can confirm were harmed in the making of this. Big Sam then has turned the battery up to 11 and does start another lap in this qualifying session. It's Stark up ahead though, and Captain Wilco, who are on the charge for Ferrari. The prancing horse is well in its stride and whipping its way through the track. The Grand National for you. Competitive? Well, maybe. Ethical? No. But through the corners we go. Into the right-hander, hugging the apex like your favourite family member. You better not tell them who your favourite is, because they might not like you very much. But anyway, down the straight towards the left-hander. Wilco, sorry, excuse me, with the best Sector 2 of the session so far. Very interesting. So, through this little snail shell section, I like to call it, or maybe a foot, depending on perspective, I don't know. But the point is, he's well and truly on the charge. And with DRS wide open, sucking up that sublime oxygen. He will have, I have no doubt, an improved time under his belt. Braking hard then, pretty much at the 100-meter board, and confidence in spades for Captain Wilco. Sailing his way through the final few corners, has a bit of a toe from the AlphaTauri up ahead, who I believe is either on a lap or is just starting a lap. The red light stops flashing. Wilco across the line, up into P4 he goes. Nice little lap there, nifty job there from Le Sailor. Stark through the final corner, no invalidation on his time. Across the line, he goes into P2. The only other man into the 1:31s so far. And the times begin to tumble. Big Sam up to P7, incredible from him. Great stuff there from the Alfa Romeo driver. It's now up to Maximus and co. to see what they can do. Has he maximised his qualifying session? No pun intended. You're about to find out. Through the final corner, every inch of track being used. And what does it put him at? P8. Just behind 0.004 of a second between himself and Big Sam. This qualifying session could well be decided on fine margins. Milo up into P4, and what he said wasn't a great track for him turns out to be somewhat of a dream at the end. Up into P4, but times will come down. Dirk up into P8, and still we are yet to see what Thanassi and co can do. Buck 57 is first down the road then. He'll cross the line first ahead of Timmelele, your current pole sitter. We'll have to see what Thanassi can muster up in his last lap of the session. Through goes Buck 57, through the final corner, pit straight, cross the line, P2. Few tenths off Timmelele. Has Timmelele improved? Yes, he has, a 1:31.0. But let's see what Thanassi can do. He's not out of the charge yet. He's down in P11. He has to improve, surely, and does so. And it's really fine margins towards the end. It's really, really close between the two. Must have been a mistake he made while I was away killing geese, so I apologise to any environmentalists. But anyway, great stuff there, and Stark remains in P4 after all the times come down. The times tumbled, and Stark stayed firmly put where he was. P4, great job there. But once again, the pole sitter changes round. Suzuka, the balance of power, stayed in the form of Zeus. But the gods looked down and said, we need a new one. Timmelele's taken that mantle today. P1 by just over 0.02 of a second. Like I said, fine margins would decide this qualifying session, and it has indeed. And look at the gaps between the rest of the field. Buck 20 and Milo, 0.007 between them. Maximus and Big Sam, 0.004 between them. Daniel Gilligan, 0.13 between himself and Maximus. Dirk only a couple of hundredths. Captain Wilco a few hundredths off Slam. And the battle for pole, like I said, was crazy to say the least. Boo Big Sam. Well, I'm pretty sure Alfa Romeo are Alpine's closest challengers in the constructors, so it's all to play for still. Slashhanger, though, didn't set a time in the end, left the session, and unfortunately could not get a lap in by the end. But what a crazy end to it was. The times came tumbling down, and in the end, Timmelele did not toboggan down from his P1. He stayed firmly put and has pole position for the second race of the evening. It's Thanassi in P2, Buck 57, Mercedes have a 2-3 in qualifying. Stark in 4th is on fire today, and I agree completely, Magico. He's absolutely smashing it out of the park today, isn't he just? McLaren 5th and 6th, Slam in 7th, Wilco in 8th, Dirk in 9th, Big Sam rounds out the top 10, with Maximus, Daniel Gilligan, Vulcan, and Slashhanger rounding out the grid lineup for the Chinese Grand Prix. Well, F1 last fired up their engines and created the cacophony of noise in 2019. We go racing once again in 2023, albeit virtually. But we do it anyway. and 14 in this case, V6 turbo hybrids begin to erupt into an orchestra, a symphony of V6 noise. And I am looking forward to it. Welcome along. If you have just joined, I predict a DNF at turn 1 and 4 safety cars. To be honest, I would not be surprised if that was the case. 6 of you here. Welcome along if you have just joined. And if you haven't just joined, thank you for sticking around for the Blackout Racing League. I hope you are enjoying the chaos that is unfolding. We are here for the Chinese Grand Prix. A race, like I said before, that hasn't happened since 2019 in real life, but we are here to do it virtually in F1 23. Let's see who takes the mantle of the master of the unused tracks in 2023. Timmelele and Thanassi have one apiece, with the French Grand Prix and Portimao respectively. So who will take top honours and shine brightest in Shanghai? Well, you're about to find out. Stark has apparently left the session meanwhile, and that's not good considering he's starting P4. Meanwhile, I'm going to give you a fun fact about China, and that is my Chinese New Year animal. Chinese New Year animal, I don't want to make some of you feel old, but I was born in 2001. I'm a snake! I'm a snake. I don't believe it. Sorry, guys. Don't trust me. You might get your head bit off. Let's see. What Chinese New Year animal are you? That's an interesting one. Probably. Oh, who am I kidding? Probably none of you are interested. But the point is, I found it interesting for a brief moment. We are waiting patiently, then, for the grid to line up for a 50% race around the Shanghai circuit at the Chinese Grand Prix. A race that I've said before has happened since 2004 until the bat virus came along and ruined everyone's fun. The lockdown time was a weird time, of course, but F1 carried on. Buck20 has left the session while Stark rejoins. So clearly, now Slam's left the session, Dirk has left, something terrible has happened. Something absolutely terrible has happened. I can only assume, considering that everyone is leaving, that we are not going to be racing in this particular lobby, and my assumption is correct, we are re-hosting. So for that reason, I can't exit. I'm a spectator. Well, you know what? I have the power of streaming. Goodbye. There you go. I've put the gauntlet down then. So let's put some music on in the background whilst we wait to re-host. There you go. Shout out to No Copyright Sounds. Most of their music still isn't copyrighted, which is great to see. There are a couple of tracks here and there that are a little bit dubious, to say the least, with the copyright system, considering they are No Copyright Sounds. But they do a good job at keeping me out of trouble and keeping me safe. So thank you. So we wait patiently then. There are not enough players remaining in this session. You can say that one again, Sunshine. Let's see what the situation is. Wow, a race. It's pretty much like the Chinese Grand Prix in the past 3 years. Nothing happened. But anyway. Not to be mean to the Chinese Grand Prix, that is just historically what happened. But the point is, we are waiting for the re-lobby, and we are waiting to get underway for the Chinese Grand Prix. Of course, the grid has been settled. And in great news, I've been invited into a lobby that I am already in. I appreciate the invite, but I am here. Hello. Let's talk about the Chinese Grand Prix then. What has been the best Chinese Grand Prix over the years? Well, there's certainly been moments of madness at the Chinese Grand Prix, but I think the best race at the Chinese Grand Prix would either have to be, for me, 2006, or I would say 2013. 2013 because of the tyre strategies, because Pirelli's tyres back then actually made the racing very interesting. They basically disintegrated after a certain point. It's what made the Chinese Grand Prix, Spanish Grand Prix, in fact, most of the beginning races very interesting. Because you had to be smart with your decisions. You even got 3-stop races at times. But then Silverstone happened, and then they made the tyres harder, and then we had no more fun as Sebastian Vettel won almost every single race. So there you go. But in 2006, it was Michael Schumacher's last victory in Formula 1, and an incredible race from him in the wet conditions, which, had Japan not happened, had he not blown up in Japan, could have been his 8th World Championship, but luck was not on his side in that particular instance. He could well have won the Brazilian Grand Prix, honestly. He was just meteorically quick that day. But we'll never know. And Alonso won his second World Championship. And his last World Championship, for that matter. Who knows what could have been for him as well. In 2013, of course, Alonso won that race. Speaking of which, won what was his 31st win in Formula 1. He would go on to win his 32nd at the Spanish Grand Prix that year, which is still somehow his last race win to this day. Although with Aston Martin this year, he has come very close indeed. While we are waiting patiently for racing to get underway, let's just talk about this, the Dutch Grand Prix while we are here. I'm sure a lot of you, pretty much all of you, would have watched it that are tuned in. The rain was chaos at the beginning. I am shocked, for one, that they didn't bring the drivers in straight away, because the advantage... I mean, the track looked wet already, just from one lap. So the weird decision to carry on, considering it was still raining, and it was that heavy, it wasn't like it was going to dry out in a heartbeat. And especially Mercedes, I have no idea what they were playing at. They're still watching the oven cooking, as opposed to actually watching what their drivers were up to. But should have brought Hamilton in quicker, and then responded earlier with Russell. But that is just my opinion. Sue me. I think Mercedes should hire me as a strategist. They would do a lot better. But Max Verstappen, I mean, you can really only just applaud the efforts he's doing. Because if the Rebel is so dominant, why is Perez not doing it? He should be doing it, if that car is that dominant. It is man and machine in perfect harmony, and Verstappen genuinely hardly ever puts a foot wrong. And is hardly ever putting a foot wrong this season. Drivers have a season like this very, very little of the time. So I'm sure he will enjoy this for as long as possible, especially while this season lasts, because there is a good chance he finishes on the podium at every race this season. He would be one of the only drivers to do that, the other one being, I believe, Michael Schumacher in 2002. But the crucial thing with Michael Schumacher is that he did it in 2002, like I said. And that was a time where you were lucky to not have an explosion at the back of your car every race. The engines were so volatile back then. The V10s might be some people's preferred engines, but they didn't blow up half the time. Goodness me. So you were lucky to finish the race more often than not. And Michael Schumacher was extremely lucky. Even when he spun out at the Malaysian Grand Prix, came back to finish third, albeit with a bit of luck on his side. But sometimes you need that in Formula 1. You need skill, you need a great car, and a dang bit of luck alongside. And that's exactly what he had during his 2002 crusade. I don't know what his average finishing position was over the course of that season during the 16 or 17 races that happened that year. But I'd be pretty sure it's one of the best averages in Formula 1 history. I mean, it has to be. There's no way it's not. Red Bull can do it this year, and you know what? Hats off to them if they do. But I don't know. Schumacher's just feels more impressive to me, but that's my opinion, considering the era of Formula 1 and how little drivers finish the race at any given point. So I'd say he did a pretty good job that year. Well, we are almost ready to get lobbied up, to get readied up, and get ready to race at the Chinese Grand Prix, although it looks like we are only doing 20 laps of the Chinese Grand Prix, which is good news, because I think the drivers would prefer that, since China is, in my opinion, quite a pain to drive. But it's one of Tilke's many interesting creations over the years. Someone called Reitz has joined. Reitz was not in race 1. What car is Reitz in? The answer is he is in the Haas. Haas have a driver. The American Dream actually now has a team, which is good news. I've been kicked. That's not gone well. Why have I been kicked? Well, I'm having technical issues on my end. Let me accept an invitation to play. Right. Right, so I kicked the wrong guy. Mate, I've been banned from the session, it says. Help. I can't get back in. Why am I banned from the session? Help. I'm banned. Like, no, I'm not even kidding. Right. I'm just gonna pause this all quickly. This is just fantastic. The Blackout radio station is back. Well, not quite in the way I would have hoped. I'm now banned from commentating Blackout. So I had a good run, everyone. But it looks like he's not coming back on then, as James May says. Can I now come back in? This is the age-old question that I've been asking many, many a time. I'm in! I'm not banned anymore. Great success. And so we can now go back to what we were doing, which is playing music and having a damn good conversation along the way. Soon, we'll be back racing at the Chinese Grand Prix. Hopefully I won't be kicked from the session and yeeted into oblivion, is my hope. The void and depressing downward spiral of being banned isn't the best feeling in the world, I'll be honest with you, but here we are. We wait patiently for the Chinese Grand Prix to re-get underway. So while we wait for things to hotten up and get underway, and for the symphony of Formula 1 to begin, I leave you with music as we get ready for the second race of the evening.
Superhero. Can I be your superhero? Superhero. 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 Can I be your superhero?
Ladies and gentlemen, I bring news of the good kind. And no, it's not that I've been banned for a second time, although that would be quite funny. It's that we're actually going racing in the Blackout Racing League. Look at this. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, for more Formula 1 action. And we are actually going to go racing at the Chinese Grand Prix. Dirk said to go spec. Man is spec. We are now underway. Although I might fancy a drive or two in this league at some point. You never know. I'd have to do it on controller because my rig is not up into PC. If I were to live stream it, I'd have to use a controller. And I'm not very good on the controller, so I wouldn't be very happy about that. Here we are, then. The Chinese Grand Prix. The Grand Prix of Chins. It's probably not very nice, but anyway. We wait in the pit lane, nice and patiently, for I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 20 laps of the Chinese Grand Prix. Plenty of twists and turns along the way, because, well, it's a track. I don't know what more you want me to say, really. What do you think it was? Is it going to be a straight affair? Do you want it to look like Zeltweg? That track looked shocking. It looked sus, quite frankly. I'll just say it looked like a pistol, and then you can search it up for yourself, but it was definitely not very nice to look at. That was the first ever Austrian Grand Prix, which was the history lesson I would have given you had I been there for the Austrian Grand Prix. But I was in another country. I was in Italy, enjoying it, soaking up the sun. With my Indian blood, like I've said before, I started out white, came back white. So that went pretty well. But the holiday break allowed me to wipe the slate clean Allow me to get my brain back in gear and ignore Alex Jakes for the second time tonight. Let's see what tyres everybody is on. We have medium, 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 hard, medium, hard, medium, hard, soft, soft, medium, hard, medium. That's it. That's it. Cool, that's good to know. Let's see what is going on. What is a cooking? We have the C4, the C3, and the C2. Let's hope it's not an explosive race for Big Sam and co. No, you will not speak, Mr. Alex Jakes. He's not speaking at all. Oh, great success. If he starts speaking, I'm turning him off. That sounds weird. Here comes Timmelele then, lining up on the grid in pole position. As I sit here, though, it looks like it will be a 50% race, although for some reason they're saying mediums to softs is a feasible strategy. But considering the tyre wear curve and the way that new tyres play a massive factor in this particular game, you'd have to think that's surely not possible. Maybe a two-stop is on the cards, considering the amount of turns that the drivers will have to transgress. You're about to find out then. Never mind, it's 20 laps. 5 red lights at the Chinese Grand Prix. Lights out and away we go. Timmelele with a decent start. Actually, a great start compared to Thanassi, who's under threat from his teammate. And his teammate gets cleanly passed into turn number 1. Sweeping round the outside. And here comes Stark as well. Round the championship leader, who's been swamped by his competition. However, he gets it all together again and goes calmly around the outside, although the battle will rage on. The inside line is clearly the way to go. Stark with a big slide out of the corner there. But Thanassi, trying to use the slipstream of his teammate ahead, has to defend and use the inside line. Stark late on the brakes as you dare. Can he sweep round and use the momentum to his favour? A contact behind between the McLaren and the AlphaTauri. Stark has the inside and up into P3. The championship leader has descended down into P4. And considering he's named after Zeus, that is not the electrifying start he would have hoped for. Down to P4, Timmelele with a comfortable lead now of 1.5 seconds already. Immediately asserting his dominance on the field. Buck 57 P2, Stark 3rd, Thanassi 4th, Buck 20 in 5th ahead of Maximus and Slam. Great start from those two. Milo down into P8, Wilco in 9th, and Slashanger in 10th. Don't know why I turned into a farmer when I said his name, but it just felt appropriate, as Daniel Gilligan is looking for blood. He's out for it. He can taste it. He can sniff it. He's in the wheel tracks. Milo, meanwhile, has got past Slam easily within a straight line, as it turns out. Up into P7, here he goes. Daniel Gilligan will look for the move into the hairpin. Down the inside, late on the brakes, as you dare. And comfortably pinches it into the apex. Looking like the Red Bull in real life, how confident he was. Fantastic. Great late braking move. And up into P10 goes the Red Bull driver. Bit wide from both of them. However, the FIA didn't say anything, so it's okay. The gap's still 1.5 seconds then as Stark begins to lose touch on Buck 57. Thanassi, though, is trying to get past the Ferrari man, and this is not the start he would have hoped for. And Buck 20 is now right on the back. There's a bit of a train forming. All aboard the Stark Express. We saw it in Monaco. We've seen it a couple of other times this season, and they've got many a delicacy at their disposal. This time, they've got many Chinese delicacies. The Chinese, of course, have an interesting cultural balance of foods. They have all the stuff you might expect in the Western world, but they also have goose intestines, recently ringed out by me after I got my hiccups. Gap still 1.5 seconds though between Timmelele and Buck 57. Not getting away as much as Timmelele would have hoped for this lap, and that's because Buck 57 has dropped an Energizer Bunny into an incinerator. His battery down towards the low end. Timmelele has got his battery firmly under control, increasing the gap to 1.8. Thanassi, though, should be on the attack soon. You'd like to think he is. Daniel Gilligan, meanwhile, is the man that's on the attack as Wilco's had a problem. He's into the wall, or was very close to hitting it. Into the infield he goes. Meanwhile, I'll go back to Thanassi, who is trying to go for the move on the inside. Stark brakes late as you dare, though. He's not giving this up in a hurry. Thanassi leaves no room on the outside there. Very aggressive and robust. And I kind of hate this about Formula 1. In real life, this is acceptable. I mean, it's a community league here, so I like to think we all have fun side-by-side racing. But in Formula 1 terms, you can actually do that. And I think that just isn't really very fair, because surely you want to encourage side-by-side racing. You want to encourage the drivers to hang it in there. But if they know they're going to be pushed off, then what's the point, really? What's the point in giving them that chance to try it anyway, when you're just going to get pushed off the road? If you don't leave racing room, you don't leave them a gap to stay within the track confines, I think that should be penalty-worthy, because you haven't given them technically racing room. But that's a discussion for another day. Timmelele's increased the gap up to 2.3 seconds, clear of his next closest competitor. Thanassi chases down his teammate Buck 57, meanwhile, who got him at the start of this race, as did Stark, who has now dropped down into P4. But DRS is enabled on this lap, and DRS is very, very strong, I should imagine. So Stark stays within that 1 second buffer. He could have DRS to his name. No idea where the detection point is. The answer is it's after this left-hander. So can Stark stay within a second? Yes, he can. And now we are going to see in full swing. He is currently a second behind, but we're going to see in full swing the demonstrative power of the DRS effect. So let's see what happens. Is DRS opened up? Yes, it is. Currently the gap 1.1 seconds. Sucking up that fresh air. And somehow only dropping down 0.2 in terms of the gap. Thanassi, I thought would have used battery, but no, he hasn't. Someone who is, Buck 57, has no battery left to play with at all. I said it had been incinerated, the Energizer Bunny. He's dropped it into a volcano, quite frankly. Mount Etna has seen the Energizer Bunny and said, welcome, my friend, and burnt it to a stake. So, Daniel Gilligan has dropped down to P10. Slash Hanger is up into P9. So it could be a juicy battle between the Red Bull and the Alfa Romeo driver. What kind of move does he go for? The inside line will open up. The momentum potentially. He does think about it, but has to back out of it just about. My goodness me, that was so close to being pincered off there. Snipped away. Luckily, no damage done. Remains in P10 and the battle continues. Meanwhile, Buck 57 is the one trying to bring the sword to the Ferrari man of Stark up ahead. Tries slicing his way past using the switchback at the right-hander, but nothing doing there. Into the right-hander on the hard tyres, but it looks like he has buckets full of pace compared to his adversary up ahead. It would be great if I had a camera angle that wasn't complete waffle, and luckily I have one now. Meanwhile, Daniel Gilligan is back past the Alfa Romeo man, down the inside into the double left-hander. Great move there, but of course DRS will be in the favour of the Alfa Romeo man unless he goes for a move, which would be unwise, surely, but luckily he does not. Thanassi, meanwhile, the leader of the championship, about to make a textbook move with DRS wide open. Buck 57 is not going to fight this at all. And I'm right, he does not do that. Yellow flag in Sector 3. Vulcan's had a bit of an oopsie moment. Was spun out on the infield, but once again, nothing to worry about. He carries on his merry way. Well, I can confirm the reason I was kicked off is because it wasn't me that was supposed to be kicked off. Turns out Reitz was sniping the lobby. So shame on him. Instead, we sniped him and said, naughty boy. We said, no, you. And while I did get caught in the crossfire, the main thing is we had justice. Stark, meanwhile, trying to be passed by Maximus, who did start on the soft tyres. To the inside he goes. Is the traction superior? The answer is yes, it is. As we go board on Stark, it actually isn't superior. I want to jump off a cliff. But Maximus breaks late. Thinks about the switch back, but holds it round the outside, and racing room is left. Oh no, McLaren and Ferrari come together. Milo thought he had a chance at the inside, but the front left tag to the right rear of Stark's car, and a slight half spin for the McLaren man is not what he would have wanted at all. Now he has to do the hard work all over again and could come under pressure from Slam behind. Daniel Gilligan did stay ahead, meanwhile, in the lone Red Bull of Slash Hanger, and is increasing that gap. Past a second it goes. The man that drives in cockpit cam has had a bit of a moment out of the left-hander, and while he did have the gap above a second, now Slash Hanger's right back in DRS range. The gap between your leader and second place man, Thanassi, then, just over 3 seconds. Timmelele's used a lot of battery, or at least I thought he had. The answer is he hasn't, and I'm just a muppet. He's actually got loads of battery in his back pocket. Buck 57 does not. It's become a habit of him crucifying every energy bunny in existence. Meanwhile, Slash Hanger makes the move on Daniel Gilligan, who breaks very late indeed, luckily not to career into the back of the Alfa Romeo man. Milo, meanwhile, gets past Maximus, because Maximus has to pull into the bits. On lap number 6. I assume just a tyre change. It seems like it'd be about right for the softs to come off and to fit another tyre compound on. You could get easily to the end, I'm pretty sure. Let's find out. Maybe there was underlying front wing damage. Nope, just tyre damage. The answer is he goes onto the hard compound tyres and goes for the big old undercut. But you never know, there could still be a safety car. Buck 20, meanwhile, has got past Buck 57. So something must have happened that I missed, which is not uncommon, but the point is Buck 20 now has moved his way up into P3 and the final podium position of this race currently. Here's the man in hot pursuit then. Thanassi, 2.8 seconds behind Timmelele so far. As there's a yellow flag in Sector 1 as Vulcan goes off for another pirouette. And it's a front wing damage, it's emotional damage and physical damage to his car. It's a pirouette that would see Motsi Mabuse jumping for joy. But unfortunately she is not here, it's me, and I have to say, oh dear. The gap now, just about 3 seconds once again. Can I have a camera that isn't completely useless? I have one. Yay! Thank you, Codemasters, for actually giving me creative freedom. Milo, meanwhile, passes Stark after what was a great qualifying Milo, who said that he would be running around the back for most of this race. Turns out he's proving everyone wrong and has moved his way up into P5. Great stuff there from the McLaren man. Can set in hot pursuit of the Bucks up ahead. Which Buck is bringing the fizz, though? Buck 57 with DRS wide open on his medium tyres then. Could go for a little switcheroo to the inside. The momentum would be in his favour, but chooses not to do so. Good little move there. If you try that on the AI on pretty much any game, they will turn into you and say, no you. And that means front wing gone, cry, go to the pits, cry some more. And then take them out in pure rage, which is my favourite pastime. Daniel Gilligan, meanwhile, is down to P13. What on earth happened to him? Must have been a spin somewhere, again, that I missed. Like I said, not an uncommon feature, but Vulcan is now into the pits to get that front wing changed. So what was a promising start to the race for Daniel Gilligan, got ahead of both Alfa Romeos. Could have been running provisionally in P8 in this race, but it has not materialised so far for the Red Bull driver. Retired early on at the Japanese Grand Prix. Slam's retired though. Oh no, what on earth's happened there? Something's gone horribly wrong. Let's ride on board with Big Sam as the safety car is deployed. So it is not over yet for anyone, as into the wall went Slam. Literally slammed into the wall. Not ideal whatsoever. And so there you go. Maximus, meanwhile, played with fire, made the early undercut. And unfortunately, the crowd were not best pleased. And he is definitely not best pleased. RG Magico says slamming stuff. Well, at least he chose an accurate name in this circumstance. It's probably not what he would have wanted, but there you go. Leaders into the pits then. They're not making the same mistake as last time, then staying out. Because there's no threat of rain whatsoever. Buck 20 into the pits, Buck 57 into the pits. And you saw how Buck 20 slowed right down there. And that is because we know that the pit assist has been quite dubious at times in this Blackout Racing League, no, not least at Monaco, where it is still a particularly terrible time. Let's see what the pit lane comes out as. Timmelele still holds the lead, then Thanassi in P2. Out in P3 comes Buck 20. Slam leaves the session, slams his controller or whatever on the desk, slams his wheel in frustration, and has slammed his way out of the session. And I can't blame him, because I would do the exact same thing. Stark moves back up into P5, courtesy of Milo having to stack up behind his teammate. And then we have Maximus bringing the circus right to the forefront with Slashhanger in 8th. 9th, Big Sam. Alfa Romeo having a decent old race so far with Dirk in 10th. Captain Wilco steered his ship into P11 so far. Daniel Gilligan rejoins the track in P12 and will mosey his way up to the back of the safety car. Vulcan is the last remaining runner in this race so far. On the medium tyres, and luckily can relax those medium tyres behind this safety car. So, Timmelele, the field line astern then, as we wait behind, changing their brake bias towards the front, using that brake temperature to warm up the tyres from the inside. It's an inside job. It's what makes it so criminal. Speaking of criminal, let's see the details of the race so far. Who has weaseled their way up the order? The answer is Slashhanger has. Up 6 positions from where he started. He has reaped the benefits so far this race. In terms of tyre life then, as you can see, everyone on absolutely fresh as you like tyres. And luckily for Maximus, his tyres are not that much older compared to everyone else's. So, it's not exactly a huge power struggle he will have. Still has a good fighting chance for AlphaTauri in this race. Slam is down and out of this race meanwhile, but while he is down and out, and it is very unfortunate for him, he still scores 2 points in this race. So that is very good news for him indeed. I just had to check that my screen was still racing because I have crippling paranoia from last time out. And the answer is it isn't, so I'm very, very happy indeed. Safety car line astern then. Let's have a big old chatto about the stipulations for the rest of this race. We can be pretty confident that these drivers will go to the end of the race now. But interestingly enough, because most drivers started on that medium tyre, they're not going to risk the soft tyres. One man who has managed to reap the benefits of the safety car is this man in P3. Buck 20 on the medium tyres now, because he, of course, started on the hard tyres, and I would be no doubt 100% confident that he can make it to the end of this race, which is good news for him. Slashhanger, meanwhile, has gone on the very, 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 very sharp end of aggressive. In fact, he's over-sharpened it. I can feel the crevices in my skin beginning to separate just by thinking about his strategy. On fresh softs, trying to go to the end of this race. Of course, the safety car will assist the tyres in preserving their tyre life a little bit. But of course, he will have to preserve those tyres all the way to the end of the race. But who knows, maybe another safety car will come out. It's safety car 1 out of 4 from Agiko. It might not have been a DNF at the first corner, but it is a DNF. Safety car is in at the end of this lap, and we go green. Speaking of man that's going green, it's Timmelele. Driving the green machine. No, it's not blending up kale. That's disgusting. It's actually concocting a mixture of victory so far. Has led from start to finish so far. Could go for the Grand Slam if things all go his way. Buck 20 will have to be right on the money if he is to get an advantage at this restart. Traditionally, hasn't been the greatest at restarts, although last week I think it was when he had a restart under his belt. He did very well indeed to keep the pack, catch the pack napping. Timmelele weaving about then. Just controlling the pace of the pack behind then. Deterring any chances of the drivers getting frisky. And Timmelele puts on the burners before the hairpin. So here we go then. Timmelele's gone very, very early indeed. Has enough heat in his tyres. Caught Thanassi a bit napping actually. And let's see what the gap will be. Buck 20 meanwhile using a very, very aggressive inside line. It's Buck 57 that's going to have to start worrying. Across the line we go then. And there's apparently a severe collision with Dirk. I have no idea what on earth happened there. The answer is, but he still has a front wing, so we'll forget that. But anyway, the point is, Timmelele does keep his lead. Thanassi P2, Buck 20 in P3. Buck 57 in P4 and will come under pressure from Stark and Milo behind. Maximus in 7th, Slashhanger in 8th on those soft tyres. Has to be aggressive at the beginning to make sure he has that track position so he can defend later on. Let's see what the stipulations are then. Buck 20 could be getting very interested in going for a move up ahead then. Medium tyres, of course, are going to be very, very gripped up. Have that purchase, have that traction. The outside line did look very interesting for a brief moment, but nothing doing there. The line just got away from him, but there's still a chance yet. Trying every this way and that way. This is tooth and nail stuff to try and claim P2 in this race. Look how much purchase the mediums have. Buck 20 with the inspired call. Starting the race on the hards. The safety cars helped him out, of course, but to have those medium tyres on, he has that extra purchase. And there is a small, fleeting glimmer of hope that he can get past the championship leader. And what a result that would be. Of course, as you all remember, he runs very high downforce indeed, using up the battery. Thanassi has stopped using the battery, meanwhile. Think smartly about it. It's going to wait for the DRS to enable for things to get very spicy indeed. Look how close it is, almost practically pushing the diffuser of the car ahead through the hairpin. Meanwhile, Wilco's up into P10 past Dirk. So good dive there from the Ferrari, although I believe the battle's not over yet. Looking very interesting. Timmelele then crosses the line, and look at these, the top three line astern. Wilco and co behind though, having a great side-by-side battle then. As ducking into the slipstream, Dirk has the power advantage in his hold for now. Wilco though will try and go for another move. Where will he go then? Round the outside, Dirk cleverly defends the inside line, so that switchback is not possible. Wilco though looking like he does have the pace for the moment then. Timmelele though will be under a huge amount of pressure from Thanassi before too long, I have no doubt. Thanassi a bit wide though through that hairpin, and again under pressure from the medium runner of Buck 20. Look at this, we could have a three-way fight for the win. Buck 20's got to get it done early, so he has that fighting chance of getting the victory, getting that fastest lap. Look how much traction and grip he has in comparison. It could be a move into the left-hander if he thinks about it. Probably not, though. It's not the biggest braking zone in the world, and rightly stays right behind. But look at the confidence he has. If you ever needed a confirmation of the mediums, a slash anger gets a 3-second time penalty there. Our second penalty of the race so far. Look at the traction Buck 20 has. He's absolute rocket ship in that McLaren, using that slipstream to good effect. Doesn't have the purchase, though, as Thanassi actually uses battery to defend himself, because he wants to be right behind Timmelele, but when DRS is enabled. This is going to be a meeting of minds here. Battle of wits. Psychological struggle. Bit of a slide out of the hairpin for the medium runner of Buck 20. But through the left-hander he goes, gets it all together. And so we go on to lap number 12 of this Grand Prix. DRS enabled. And the gap between Timmelele and Thanassi has not really increased that much. Timmelele, though, crucially for him, has much, much more battery, which I'm sure will help him, I have no doubt. The momentum there, my goodness me. Thought Buck 20 had a fleeting chance of getting down the inside there on the switch. But not doing that. We carry on our merry way. Timmelele then, holding down first position. Keeping it his fortress. Hoping it stays sturdy, stays stable. Unlike Theresa May. But then she had no hope anyway. Into this second section then. Traditionally, Buck 20 in his past couple of laps has been right on the back of Thanassi. But in this particular instance, nothing doing at the moment. What can Timmelele do? Does he choose to break DRS, or does he choose to do something else? Daniel Gilligan's had a moment, meanwhile. He's in the wall. In the wall for the Red Bull man, and it is significant front wing damage. Does keep it together. Bit of slide as he gets back on the track there, lighting up the rear tyres, barbecuing them nicely. But no safety car needed. He carries on and is still in this race. Blissfully enough for him. DRS enabled then, a very, very long straight to go through. And Thanassi deploying Le Batterie. Timmelele not deploying anything meanwhile. So he doesn't really care if Thanassi tries to go for a move, because there's another DRS zone. But I'm going through, says Thanassi. And he toboggans his way down the inside. But look at the momentum. Timmelele has it. Contact made. And Buck 20 goes through. Great move. And has the outside line for the last corner. Bit wide through there though. Timmelele leaves the space courteously, but the three will go head to head as we head down the main straight. Somehow no DRS for either Timmelele or Buck 20. Thanassi has DRS, but down the inside Timmelele has, and Buck 20 is there again. A massive three-way fight here, cutting over the curbs there, because it seemed to be the only line, the only option he had. But somehow, it still remains Timmelele 1, Zeus 2, Buck 23. That was hectic, wasn't it? I'm sure it will continue all the way through if that was a precursor of what's to come. I am so ready for it. Look at this, though. The exit again from Buck 20. It's putting Thanassi and co under huge amounts of pressure. Those mediums are firing up wonderfully. But how much time does he have left before the crossover begins? Before those hards start to come into their own? That is the question. We'll have the answers very, very soon for you. But he is so far right on the back of the championship leader. Here he is. Right in DRS range once again here. Timmelele and co. very low on battery. Buck 20 even lower then. As we head through, he has front row first class seats to the battle up ahead then. Thanassi will have DRS. I can only assume he's using battery. Timmelele not fighting back, which is smart of him. Once again, he's going to try and send Thanassi to that inside line. He does so. Thanassi ahead at the braking zone here. Timmelele, I'm sure, will not fight it, but Buck 20 gets his braking a little bit wrong there. Miscommunication, basically. Racing, says Magico. Let's keep applauding it, and let's hope we can keep applauding it, because now Timmelele will have DRS, and Buck 20 will have compliments of DRS as well, as we head through into the first few corners. Trying to break the slipstream to the inside goes Thanassi then. Timmelele will have the outside line, but look who it is. Buck 20, and that was very forceful indeed. Almost too forceful, really. Goodness me. Very forceful stuff. Timmelele now down into P3, but that looked very, very circumspect indeed from the McLaren man. Mental scenes going on left, right and centre, and you're quite right, there is. Thanassi up into P1. It was a clean move from him. But the same can't be said about what happened at turn 1. It seemed like Buck 20 pretty much pushed his way through. And that was not how I would have hoped he would have taken P2 in this race, but he continues his crusade nonetheless. For P1. Wilco, meanwhile, up into P8. He continues his charge up the field. Great stuff from the Ferrari driver. Stark still holding down P5, which is great news for him. Milo down in P11. I have short-term memory loss, so I can't remember what happened. It was probably something very bad in his department, though. Anyway, Buck 20 will have DRS now. Thanassi has been trying to get away. Unsuccessfully. Buck 20, 7 tenths, depleting down to 6 tenths worth of gap. What can Buck 20 do then? DRS wide open. Seen this man briefly at the front at times, but he's going to be right at the sharp end in this particular instance. That's Shanghai. Late on the brakes as you like. A great confidence from the McLaren man once again. The traction still in his favour for the moment. He'll have a second compliment, a second helping of it as he goes through the last corner. Seemed to get a better exit. And DRS is wide open once again for the McLaren man. And could we have another change of leader in this Chinese Grand Prix? Buck 20, I'm sure, would try the inside if he could. But nothing doing there. Momentum just not on his side. And while these two scrap away, Timmelele is slowly but surely catching up to them once again. And so begins the crusade for a 3-car fight here in Shanghai once again. Pressure being put on by Buck 20. Continues to hound the rear end of that Mercedes. Thanassi, the name living up. He has the weight of the world on his shoulders. Will the gods hear his calls? Meanwhile, someone who is having a corker is Captain Wilco. Those soft tyres have not been the correct gamble for Slashanger, and Wilco now up into P7. Ferrari 5th and 7th. Meanwhile, Buck 20 is been bestowed with a 3-second penalty from the gods of Formula 1. That's not what he would have been hoping for, but he has DRS, and he is crucially closer than last time. Timmelele within DRS range as well, so he's within a fighting chance of getting right in the thick of this battle so far. Hardly anything to separate the battery consumption for these two. Yellow flag in Sector 2, meanwhile. Vulcan's had another problem, but gets back on the track. Nothing doing there. Buck 20 might say, I'm coming through. Thought about diving to the inside. Nothing doing there. Thanassi's gone slightly wide, though. Buck 20 with a bit of a slide at the exit, though. So they both compromised themselves just as much. And now we go onto the main straight. It will be a second serving of DRS. Another time penalty. I know, it's a shame, isn't it? Could have been so much more for Buck 20. But he's still not down and out provisionally of getting the track position, which is the crucial thing for him. Buck 57 in the background there, meanwhile. Don't count him out of this if these three really start fighting it out. You never know what could happen here. Only a few laps left to run at this Chinese Grand Prix. At this Chinese Grand Prix, should I say? I say as if they're a plural, which there aren't. Nearly 7 tenths, the gap between Buck 20 and the car he is chasing, Thanassi. Up now to 7 tenths of a second. Medium's still really not crossing over yet, but you have to feel like it's going to do so very, very soon indeed. The chase is on. Buck 20 is going for it. Millo's also going for it side by side with Big Sam. Almost was free wide momentarily, but here comes Dirk meanwhile, round the outside, going into the left-hander. Brilliant side-by-side action from him and Big Sam in the Alfa Romeo, but Big Sam has the momentum on his side, tries to hold it round the outside, will have the inside line for this left-hander, but Dirk sweeps cleanly past on those medium tyres. Great racing from the pair of them then, as Dirk promotes himself up into P10. Meanwhile, DRS open for Buck 20 once again then. The gap decreasing all the time. There's so little energy, I could cry. Buck 20 late on the brakes as you dare, but it's not going to be enough to displace Thanassi from first position. Although his exit still is incredible. Still 3 tenths of the gap, and my goodness me, what a corner that was from Buck 20. Thanassi probably using a bit of battery to defend, but DRS wide open for the McLaren man. As they go into turn number 1 then. A bit of a wide entry. Thanassi's gone a bit wide. And look who might steam up the inside. Space left. Buck 20 goes for it. The move down the inside will turn to the outside line. Tries to sweep round the Mercedes man. Thanassi does have better purchase. That inside line just seems to be the quicker line of the two. But the battle will not be done yet. Thanassi will have to defend the inside. Surely the answer is he doesn't have to. Buck 20 does not go for the move. Hectic stuff then. Buck 20, despite that time penalty, still feisty as ever. Feels like he's got nothing to lose with that penalty, and he's showing it, my goodness me. Meanwhile, Big Sam displaces his teammate, goes up into B10. Great stuff there. will come up into P6 as well. It's always that corner. He seems to just have the optimum traction, everything he could have hoped for. And up into P6 he goes. Ferrari now 5th and 6th, and looking very, very good indeed. Buck 20, my goodness me, right on the back now of Thanassi. This is the closest he's been yet. And with DRS, there is surely no doubt that he'll catch and pass Thanassi. Has to be absolutely zero doubt in his mind. It's already done. It's done when he says it is done. And in about 3 seconds time, I can confirm Buck 20 is your new race leader of the Chinese Grand Prix. Keeps Thanassi at arm's length, keeps him side by side. Look how close Timmelele is, meanwhile. We've wanted a 3-car battle for the lead for the longest time, and now we have got it. Medium tyres of Buck 20 working a treat, and Thanassi will have DRS as they go down the start-finish straight. But Buck 20, who forcefully got his way past Timmelele, easily got past Thanassi, and now is up into P1. Thanassi might have a chance yet. Holds it round the outside a little bit. Nothing doing there. Timmelele had a chance of potentially steaming up the inside, but nothing doing there. Buck 20 is your new leader of the Chinese Grand Prix. Thanassi in P2, Timmelele in P3. What is happening everywhere else then? Well, Dirk is keeping up with the coattails of the McLaren of Milo up ahead, which is crucial for him. That's exactly what he wants in his particular crusade. Thanassi, meanwhile, was briefly 7 tenths behind. Timmelele was right on the back of him, but now the gaps have just equalised somewhat here. The top 3 equalising the gap, 6 tenths between each of them for a brief moment, and then momentarily 5 tenths between Buck 20 and Thanassi. Correction, as Daniel Gilligan has had another kind of problem. I have no idea what's happened, but he is still racing, which is good news for him. Meanwhile, the attention turns to the front. Buck 20 has actually increased that gap. Those mediums are working still. A treat. 6 tenths, nearly 7 tenths of a second is the gap. But Thanassi will be using that ERS, I have no doubt, and that DRS. Because look how little energy Buck 20 has. He has so little energy, you couldn't even power a Prius with that. And why would you want to? Thanassi's going to come steaming through, surely. Side by side, into the hairpin. Use the momentum around the outside. No, Buck 20 has gone extremely wide. Onto the curbs he goes. And once again, Timmelele in the wrong place at the wrong time as Buck 20 rejoins the track. Although Timmelele is as close as he's ever been to overtaking that McLaren. Goodness me, so still the mediums are raging on. Timmelele, though, looks to be making a move and will be making the pass down the inside into turn number 1. Timmelele is through into P2. Buck 20 thought about making a move, but instead clips the back right tyre of the Aston Martin. Things getting very frosty, however, the icing... Very frosty, should I say. However, the icing on the cake and the cherry on top is Timmelele's to hold. Meanwhile, a great exit from Buck 20. Could see him try another move, but nothing doing there. His confidence on the brakes is very good, although in this particular instance, he is, well, bulldozing his way slightly straight on. 2 laps to go then. Action at every turn, and it feels like I've been, well, completely flummoxed. Milo, meanwhile, is in the clutches of Big Sam behind. While this is all happening, as they just exit Sector 1. Big Sam on for a great result, all things considered. Qualified well, and has raced very well to boot. Timmelele, 3 tenths of a second between himself and Thanassi. Could choose to make the overtake, but then he is vulnerable on this last lap of the race. And my goodness me, look at the exit Buck 20 just got. Wow, that inside line is looking very strong, isn't it? DRS wide open. Timmelele deploys a bit of battery. Thanassi doesn't do much to defend from it. Timmelele actually hangs behind, and Buck 20 just could not find the right line to get through. Again, things frosting over very, very coldly indeed. I'm getting a bit of a chill watching racing like this. Good news is we have one more lap of it. Look how close it is. DRS wide open for Timmelele then. We'll have the outside line for the first corner. A 3-way fight for the lead of this race then. Timmelele sweeps round the outside. It's going to be side by side between the two. Timmelele displaced briefly as Buck 20 on the inside. Has to leave space for him. Thanassi goes wide. What on earth is going on? The answer is Buck 20's now up into P2 briefly, although I don't know if that's actually staying because he's trying to go for the move on Thanassi. Buck 20 down the inside. And you know what? He might just do it. He has the inside line for the hairpin and he's through into P1. Great racing from all 3 drivers then. Buck 20 takes the lead on track. And it's not over yet, though. He still has that 3-second penalty, of course. And he still has the DRS straight to combat before he wins this race on the road. He will be guaranteed a podium position, though, regardless. As long as he keeps it all together and nothing dramatic happens. using absolutely everything he's got in that McLaren. Timmelele and Thanassi, though, have both saved up battery. So this could get very interesting indeed then. Don't adjust your sets. Here is your race leader, but for how much longer? Thanassi will have DRS, and I have no doubt will try and reclaim the lead of this race. Look how quickly he's moseying up to the back of Buck 20. It's not even going to be close between the Greek driver and Buck 20. Through goes Thanassi into P1. Timmelele right on the back of Buck 20. The penalty would have been applied anyway. I was waiting for Buck 20 to potentially win it on the track, but with the world on his shoulders, he's done it again. The championship leader wins the Chinese Grand Prix. Timmelele will claim P2 in the end, after what was some hard and frosty racing at times, but in the end, no driver came to blows, and when push came to shove, Buck 20 did shove his way through at first, but with the penalty applied, it will be P3 for the McLaren man. Daniel Gilligan on the last lap steals the fastest lap of the race. Buck 57 finishes 4th. Stark in P5 at the end. Dirk manages to get P6, so Aston Martin with a good constructors, or in fact the top 3 constructors that race, doing equally great jobs. The box says you are welcome for some epic racing. Well, I tell you what, I enjoyed it. Regardless of what my opinion was, I had an incredible time. That was fantastic to watch. 44-40 wings. Jesus, Lord above. You are a madman, my friend. Do you know what? He ran high wings. He had the downforce to overcome his adversaries in the corners. Straight line might not have been his cup of tea, but in the end, didn't really matter too much. He was in the fight all the way to the very end, and the mediums did not fall off as dramatically as some might have first feared. Great news for Buck 20 and a great race from him, but it's this man again. This man again wins yet another race and continues to extend his championship lead. Goodness me. Magico, thank you so much. I appreciate the love. But in the end, you've got to give credit where credit is due to all of the drivers who gave us an absolutely phenomenal show from start to finish at both races. Every single turn had another piece of ecstatic drama for me to shout over. And as a shouty man, I've personally enjoyed that race very much indeed. Thanassi finishes the week, actually, with a P2 and a P1, winning the Chinese Grand Prix. He is now crowned the master of the unused in 2023. Timmelele fought to the end, but it was not enough, finishing P2. Buck 20 P3, Buck 57 in P4. Bucks are 3rd and 4th. Great job bringing the fizz. Stark in P5, Dirk in P6, Milo 7th, Big Sam, Wilco and Maximus round out your top 10 with Slashhanger, Vulcan, Daniel Gilligan with fastest lap in P13, and Slam, the only DNF, slamming into the wall in P14. Well, that concludes it then. That wraps up another wonderful week of the Blackout Racing League. Well, well, that was quite something. We had two 35% races today, which I thought I wasn't going to see, but there was just a little bit more to lose. It's just a little bit more zest, and I quite like that, personally. Incredible racing. Again, well done to all the drivers. On the whole, some fantastic racing at all times. Some of it was frosty, some of it was aggressive, but sometimes that was required in order to make progress up through the field. A three-way fight in the Chinese Grand Prix for the lead was the story of that race. Buck 20 came so close to winning the race on the track, but Thanassi did it again in this Blackout Racing League. Continues to extend his championship advantage, while Timmelele continues to complete his cause for P2 in the standings. The man slam-dunked and grand slammed the whole of F1 22. Maybe this championship is the first he won't quite get. But we still have, if I am correct, 6 races left to go, and therefore 3 weeks of Season 1 of the Blackout Racing League, so 3 more chances of him to perhaps clinch the championship. Who knows what could happen? You just never quite know in the Blackout Racing League. Japan had some mixed conditions, but it did not mix up the order as much as one would have hoped. Those that gambled on the dampness, wading them through to success, were not paid back handsomely. In fact, fortune was with those who stayed out on the dry tyres and finished the race on those dry tyres. It was Stark that won the first race, 2 in a row for the Ferrari man, and a great week from him. Also a great week from Thanassi and Timmelele. P2 and a win for Thanassi, and P3 and P2 for the Aston Martin driver. Well then, I am out of breath and I am out of brain power and synapses. What an incredible week of league racing here in the Blackout Racing League. I hope you've had just as much fun as I have. I sincerely hope you have, because, well, that was quite something, those 2 races, and the racing was absolutely divine to watch. So thank you for giving me some great racing, drivers. Thank you to all of you for watching. I love and appreciate you. I can't explain to you how grateful I am to be able to do this every single week. Just whatever the case, it's endless balls of fun, and I will continue to enjoy it as much as ever for the foreseeable future as we head towards the end of Season 1. I appreciate you. Thank you for all the support you give. Thank you, Magico. I honestly appreciate you so much, man. And thank you, my brother. That's why he's my brother. If your brother doesn't support you like that, I would seriously consider that adoption form. But he is. Rip to the geese. I'm not even going to end it on the beat drop, because I'm just that kind of guy, really. Rip to the geese. I can't tell you how many died. I really can't tell you. I hiccuped. How many times did I hiccup? Let me count. 6, 7... that's a lot of geese. Oh, crap. That is a lot of geese. Well, you know what? I have lunch sorted for the next few days. 69,420. Man is a proper Riz God. 72. That was the amount of safety cars that should have happened in race 1. But Codemasters did not bestow that fortune onto us. Maybe next time, though. Where would we be heading next, then? Any predictions? I'd have to think now. I have to rack my memory. We've got Abu Dhabi. We've got Las Vegas as the last 2. Definitely. We've got... oh, Qatar! Qatar, of course we have. We've got Qatar soon. The Qatar Grand Prix. That'll be a fun one to do. I believe it's Qatar next. A race that is high on fuel, high in attrition, and high on tyre wear. And where high downforce could come to the forefront. So, the Bucks could well be in the hunt. Thanks, Windows, for ruining what was otherwise a very wholesome outro. But my goodness me. I hope you look forward to next week as much as I do, as we head over to, I presume, Qatar. And then I couldn't tell you what other race, but I'm sure it'll be just as chaotic and fun. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all the love and support. Thank you to Blackout for allowing me to commentate. I can't explain to you how much I just absolutely love commentating this. And I'll continue to do so until the end of time. If you did enjoy, please consider giving it a follow if you haven't already, and continue supporting me on all various social media platforms. I love and appreciate you all. Have a lovely time, and I'll see you very soon. Goodbye for now.
invincible.